Welcome to a place for those in search of truth and conviction, a place where we discuss culture, politics, philosophy, and everything in between. I'm Luke, and I'm here with Russ. This is Hardly Strictly Politics.
Hell yes, dear listener. HSP boys are back in the saddle once again for episode number 29. Thank you so much for jumping in the saddle with us. Last show in our 20s, dear listener, before we matriculate into our 30s. 2 separate continents, 2 separate countries, 2 vastly different time zones, 2 separate adult beverages just to make it fair, 2 separate fact shamings, 2 separate paths to the same inevitable conclusion, 2 separate declarations of independence. Happy Independence Day, Texas, March 2nd, 1836 to March 2nd, 2019, always free. Episode number 29, dear listener, can you believe it? 29 is a prime number. Prime number episodes tend to go well for the HSP boys, dear listener, and hopefully they go well for you too, so let's not tarry. Let's saddle up and ride into HSP number 29, which is in the house, presently. Find us on Facebook at Zero Gravity Med. Same thing on Twitter at Zero Gravity Med. And you can always find us right here in our own house. Send us email at feedback@zero-gravity-media.com. That's feedback at zero-gravity-media.com. And we need some feedback this week, dear listener. Luke and I are kind of at a crossroads regarding the length of HSP. We rinsed it out on Friday Night Comfy Post last night and talked about it. Let me not content cut too much. We'll spell it out for you directly ahead on the trail. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and TuneIn, all 3 under Zero Gravity Media. Find us on YouTube. Look for Zero Gravity Media and our Zero G logo in our profile pic. At our website, you'll find all our shows as well as the ability to comment directly on each. There you can also send us a message using the contact form. That's zero-gravity-media.com/contact, zero-gravity-media.com/contact. Listens continue to climb, dear listener. We are growing stronger together. We've got Arlington, Texas in the house, Rowlett, Texas in the house, San Francisco, LA, San Jose, Mesa, Arizona in the house, DC in the house, Houston in the house, Galveston in the house, Nolens and Baton Rouge in the house, Shreveport in the house, Little Rock, Arkansas, Seattle, Royal Tunbridge Wells, Sydney and Melbourne, g'day mates, Bangkok, Londonistan, Paristan, Nigeria, dear listener, believe it or not, and all of us worldwide are blazing this trail together, dear listener. We're in great company. Thank you so much for swinging by. Leave us feedback at our website and let us know what's on your mind. Also, dear listener, send us any articles you may wish to write. We'd be delighted and honored to host you on our website. I cannot emphasize enough, dear listener, go read Luke's piece up on the website. It is completely badass. Please swing by and peruse it at your leisure. We're changing things up for this week, dear listener, for a very specific reason. We're going to cover dear listener feedback first, and you'll see why presently. So let us not tarry, Luke. Let's get directly into feedback.
Sure. So we got some feedback. Now, dear listener, I am with you on this. The show was way too long last week, but it was it was needed at the same time because we covered so much stuff. But there's 2 reasons why, and by the way, this is most of the feedback that we got was that it was too long. And
Yes.
there are two reasons for this. One was bots, which I'll let Russ explain what bots is because we also had a piece of dear listener feedback asking what that is. And then the audio breaks that we've added in. The audio breaks total to 27 additional minutes. Bots, I think, occupied another 30 minutes to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you were to just take those 2 out, which are the 2 new elements in the show, then the show would be about 3 to 3.5 hours, which is normal. So that is the difference. That's why. So to address this first for the audio breaks, we'll try to find shorter clips. So under 10 minutes, basically. And that should help deal with that. That'll only lengthen the show by about 10 or 15 or 10 to 20 minutes in total. And bots, we are currently working on a solution. This is a difficult question to answer. We've come up with several ideas. It doesn't make sense just to list them out in bullet point format because without explaining why we're not covering them. Or at least if we did do that, you would know that we're not covering them. That didn't get by us. But I think it's a lot more valuable if you explain why we're not covering them. And, some of them are kind of brackish in nature. It's like they don't deserve to be a topic all their own, yet there are some things worth mentioning there. So we just, and if we're going to go on about it for a long time, we don't want to do it at the beginning of the show because that's prime real estate for content. So we're figuring it out. I will tell you that this week we are going to cover bots as we did last week without making a change because we haven't settled on a solution yet. But this week also was a very slow news week, as you probably guessed. So we actually have time this time. So
yeah, thank God for bots this week, straight up.
Yeah, seriously. So anyways, yeah, that's it. So we're going to look to get shorter audio breaks, and regarding bots, we're going to find a solution in the next week or two regarding that. So moving on, Russ, did you want to actually explain to dear listener what bots are?
Yeah. It's rather coincidental. I got two pieces of feedback. One from dearest listener saying that we need to explain what bots is every week, and that's true. And then I actually got another piece of feedback saying, what in the hell is a bot? Okay. That's a good question, dear listener. Bots means bottom of the stack. It's stuff that Luke was just talking about. It's stuff that we're going to mention, just to kind of talk about what we're not going to talk about in this current episode. Now, over time, dear listener, Luke and I have falsely conjugated bots, right? So that an individual topic in bots, bottom of the stack, is now a bot in HSP speak, okay? Doesn't make any sense. We do realize, but, because bot literally would translate to bottom of the, okay? We know. We hope that you now get our idiomatic speech as well, dear listener. Just trying to have some fun. That's all. So that's what a bot is. And that's what bots is. Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, over time, I think you just sort of, at a certain point, begin to develop your own language around this. So
yes,
that's all bots has become. So
right.
Speaking of bots, dude, do you want to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. Did you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Actually, okay. One last quick thing, and here it's really interesting, Luke, because I also got feedback about bots from a dear listener. Number one was to blow through them. Number two, be a little bit go from two sections, right? The first section we blow through them. The second section be a little bit more in depth with a little bit more interaction, and then get into the segments after that. So again, dear listener, we're thinking about it. We're working on it. We just don't have a solution yet. So
yeah, but we've got possible solutions, but we need to we need to think about it more. We need to talk about it more, and we'll make a decision, and then we'll roll with that.
Yes, sir.
But bots will be somewhere. If not at the beginning of the show, then at the end of the show. If not on the show, then on another show. Bots will be somewhere. We just don't know what we're going to do with it yet.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. Well, did you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah. Go ahead, man. By all means, go right ahead.
All right, cool. All right. So my first bot of the week. I love how we can use that singular now.
I know, man. So, it's a false conjugation, but whatever. I like it too, man.
Yeah. So my first bot of the week. So, dear listener, there was. So I'm sure you're probably aware that there's been a lot of scrutiny come down on the tech companies. Namely, Tucker Carlson has a lot to say about the left-leaning nature of the technology landscape out there, and he's not wrong in that. I think they're definitely, well, I think there is an observable lean to the left in the landscape of technology. And one thing that I've been arguing, and I think, Russ, you've been making the case as well, is that left to our own devices, left to freedom, other players would come on the market and address that.
For sure.
Why? Because it presents a market opportunity. This is why we are capitalists here on HSP.
That's right, man.
And right on cue, Gab, who I don't use Gab. I'm not a huge fan of Gab, just from a business standpoint. I just don't think they run a very good business. I think something about the upper leadership there's something left to be desired with Gab as a platform, qua technology, and as a business. But they came out with a new piece of software this week called Dissenter. And Dissenter is a browser extension, which I've got this article pulled up, Russ, that puts a far right comment section on every site. I mean, now this is one of the things that bugs me about Gab as a business, is that they don't do themselves any favors when they name their products things like Dissenter.
True.
I mean, first of all, that sounds like what are those things in Harry Potter that like float around, the ghostly sort of figures? A Dementor?
Dementors,
Is that,
yes.
Dementors?
Yes.
Yeah, that's like what comes to mind when I hear Dissenter.
Yes.
So they don't do themselves any favors from a branding standpoint when they call it Dissenter.
Yeah.
So this has absolutely taken over Poll at any given time right now. As we're recording the show, there's probably 5 threads at least on Poll about Dissenter. And I'm quoting here from an Engadget article taken from the lead. Gab, the quote unquote free speech. I love how they put that in quotes, by the way, Russ. It's so funny.
Yeah,
it's
I know, right?
Free speech. Like they're mocking it, you know?
Yeah, right.
You know, this journalist, this writer is not even trying to hide their bias here, you know?
Right.
The free speech social network that's become a haven for the far right has launched a browser extension that creates an alternative comment section for any website. The Dissenter plugin, which appears as a sidebar once enabled, allows Gab users to discuss everything from tweets to Wikipedia pages in real time without the fear of said comment being removed by a site's moderators.
Dang.
So this is, first of all, I love the concept. Just from a technology standpoint, yes. I love the concept. I think it's brilliant. I haven't used it yet. I haven't installed it yet, but I plan on it just to see how it works.
Yeah.
I doubt I'll spend much time commenting in there, but I just don't, you know, Russ and I fought the meme wars, and you know, once you get home from a war, you're not really trying to go back unless you really need to.
That's right, man.
And there's just certain things that you can't forget, you know. So in any case, we still can't talk about our service records, still classified. But
someday, dear listener,
someday
we have
we'll drop them.
Orders, though, you know,
But in any case, I thought this was a really interesting application of technology. I think it's a brilliant move on their part. I'm interested to see how much it takes off. I have a hard time with just the name, like Dissenter. I just have a hard time people taking it seriously, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how popular this actually becomes. What do you think, Russ?
I expect it to become really popular if for no other reason because of Poll's support of it. But like, God, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. It's just a genius idea, man. Genius idea. And, this is a one step toward more free speech. And so I'm all about it. And I think that their market results from this plugin or from the, it's a plugin. It's a plugin. I think that this is going to do them well in the marketplace. I think it'll help Gab out a lot in general. I mean, you take a stand for freedom, good things are coming your way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I just think it's funny because these kinds of things puts the left in this position of having to take these absurd positions, like they can speak about anything anywhere.
Right.
Look at them. They're conversing. We can't allow that.
I know, right? Yeah.
It's just so funny.
Right wingers. Oh my God.
Yeah. No. Well, it just forces them into having to defend these absurd positions. Like people shouldn't be able to have open and free conversation. Now, like again, from a business perspective, I think Gab would do themselves some favors if they would just simply set some very basic rules, very basic guidelines, and that they're objective and written with clarity, and then they just let it be at that. Yeah, which is Twitter's problem. And YouTube, they have these very vague. What's the word I'm looking for? Like these very vague rules around what you can say and what you can't say. And then they don't even abide by their own vague rules. They just do whatever they want. Right. So it creates these opportunities. But then Gab goes so far into the other direction that they're just like, you can say whatever you want. And I think that from a business perspective, I think that will turn a lot of people off. They would rather go to a moderated place like Twitter rather than go to a place like Gab where like every other tweet is Hitler did nothing wrong. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. For example, yes.
Yeah. For example.
Yeah.
So, in any case, moving on. I only have one other bot, so this is a pretty big deal actually. dear listeners. So this is this past week, I'm quoting an article from USA Today. A federal judge in Texas has declared that an all-male military draft is unconstitutional, ruling that, quote, the time has passed, end quote, for a debate on whether women belong in the military. The decision deals the biggest legal blow to the selective service system since the Supreme Court upheld the draft in 1981. In Rostker versus Goldberg, the court ruled that the male-only draft was, quote unquote, fully justified because women were ineligible for combat roles. The case was brought by the National Coalition for Men. I'm skipping down a paragraph. National Coalition for Men, a men's rights group, and two men who argued the all-male draft was unfair. And then finally, from the last paragraph, quote, yes, to some extent this is symbolic, but it does have some real-world impact, said Mark Angelucci, the lawyer for the men challenging the draft. Quote, either they need to get rid of the draft registration or they need to require women to do the same thing that men do. So what are your thoughts on this, Russ?
It's one of these things I'm ambivalent about, man. I mean, like, yeah, I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? Like if we have to, endure all of this feminism, well, let's make the ultimate step in the right direction for the feminists, and that's that you are required to step up and serve your country when drafted. You must sign up for the draft, and you must be drafted if we get into a war. What's fair is fair. But of course, these feminists don't really want this, right? They don't want to be drafted. They want to push men around and boss us around and all that kind of stuff, but they don't really want to put their money where their mouth is in terms of signing up for the draft. I mean, I can't speak draconianly for all feminists, but like for the most part, that's where the feminist movement is. My other point, the reason I'm ambivalent is because I don't think that women should be in combat roles. That same article, I have it as well, Luke. It goes on to detail that it's not necessarily true that women they serve a lesser role than men in combat. Dear listener, it's just the simple fact: men are stronger than women, right? And I have a bot about this to this effect that I'm going to mention in just a little bit. And war is the province of men. There is a reason why wars have always been fought by men throughout history, right? Because war is the province of men. Now, I don't want to, deny any feminists their rights to go fight for our country if they want to, but there are certain biological restrictions that women have just in terms of monthly cycles that really affect their roles in combat, I think, So I just kind of see it two different ways, Luke. I don't know. What do you think about it?
Well, yeah, if you're going to have a draft, then from the standpoint of the Constitution, it would make sense that it would apply to everybody of a certain age group.
Sure.
But I personally think that the concept of a draft is totally immoral. I think it is one of the most evil things that has ever been done in this country, is forcing people to go give their lives for something that they may or may not believe in. Now, you could argue whether they should or shouldn't believe in it. But that's a different conversation.
Right.
Forcing somebody to go die for something like the Vietnam War. All of those veterans, or all of those men who were killed in the Vietnam War, under the draft was that is who didn't want to be there, is totally, totally immoral. I can't think of anything more evil, honestly. And I don't think that the purpose of this country was ever to do something like this. I think the purpose of this country was to protect people from being sucked into something like this.
Right.
And and there's a lot of other more practical arguments. I'm never too interested in making practical arguments, but some of the practical arguments could be that a volunteer military is much more effective than an involuntary military, like people who are forced to be there, who don't want to be there. Mm-hmm. This is why I have a theory. I have not, actually, it's not even a theory. It's a hypothesis because I have no proof for this, but I have a hypothesis that one of the reasons we have this very, very strict sort of undressing you of your humanity and boot camp attitude is to deal with something like the draft, which is a whole bunch of people who don't want to be there. You need to turn them into machines. I mean, when we fought the Revolutionary War against the British, we didn't. I mean, those guys were just kind of like, and like, you know, it's Texas Independence Day today. None of those guys, they were all there voluntarily.
Absolutely.
And, you know, here we are fighting, or there they were fighting on a voluntary basis. And they would come up with ideas. And with George Washington, it was crossing the, oh God, what was the river, Russ?
The Delaware, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night, it was for Texas. It was attacking the Mexicans on during their siesta. So, I just think that a volunteer military is the way to go from a practical standpoint, and I uphold the principle that the practical is the moral. And so, yeah, I can't in good conscience support something like the draft at all. I think it's totally evil.
Yeah, well said, man. I couldn't agree more, actually. I didn't even really think about that, you know, because our volunteerism and our patriotism has worked time and time again throughout history. The one time, you know, where the government executing force in a draft where it really did not work was Vietnam. And you illustrated that perfectly. But every war previous to that, you know, the Korean War, especially World War II, World War I, people were standing in line for blocks to go sign up for the service, right? The volunteerism worked. It always has. And, you know, another thing is you were making that argument, Luke, that which is a great argument. You know, one thing about the draft that has always kind of bugged me a little bit is that it seems symptomatic of a warfare state, a state absolutely determined to go to war. And, you know, thank God we've not instituted a draft again since the Vietnam War. But like, what would a warfaring country do? They would institute a draft law. That would be it. You know, that's exactly what they would do. You know,
yeah.
And I mean, you know, at least we don't have compulsory military service like some true warfaring nations do, and some not so warfaring nations. To be fair, at least we don't have compulsory service. But like, yeah, man, the draft has always kind of bugged me a little bit. I mean, you know, when I was 18, I was excited about it. You know, but you know, over time. Yeah, I think the morality of the law becomes it fails. It's just my mind has just changed over time about it. That's pretty much it. I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about this on a previous show when I received my letter for the selective service. And my mom had to explain to me what it was. I remember being, oh, dude, there's a certain emotion inside of me that I can't quite put into words about how passionately I felt about the idea that someone had a claim on my life. And I the deepest inside of me, I had the deepest reaction I could possibly have to the idea that someone has a claim on my life. It made me so angry. I can't even, it's making me triggered right now, even thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I think it's a totally immoral law, and I think that if we're going to fight a war, then it needs to be one that people voluntarily want to fight. And a good example of this, again, we were talking about this. You know, you want to know what a volunteer army is? Watch Braveheart again. When William Wallace is riding his horse in front of those guys, volunteered for that. They were wanting to go to war. Those are the people you want fighting your battles for you.
That's absolutely right.
You know, those people that are amped up, they are ready. They're like, bring it. You know, in Vietnam, when that war went to hell, it was when all the while the volunteers slowly started to get replaced with all the draftees who didn't care. They didn't want to be there.
That's right.
And Vietnam War just went to hell. And they started doing drugs and like all this stuff, you know? So I want a volunteer army for the practical reasons that it's much more effective. And I want a volunteer army because the government does not have a claim on your life. And going back to what I was saying about these like Scottish people and the revolution fighters back in the early days of the United States, it's like those guys didn't need to form into a block, get screamed at by drill instructors, told that they're worthless pieces of garbage, had their humanity or their emotions completely drained away and turned into robots. No, it was the opposite. They were like, harness your emotions. Your emotions are going to get you through this. Your emotions are going to win this war.
Right.
It's when you have an army of people who don't want to be fighting the war that emotions become a bad thing. You need to strip them of their emotions.
That's right, man. So, well said.
Yeah. So yeah, dude, I am pro volunteer army.
Me too, man. Me too. And you know, there are plenty of causes for which I would volunteer my life to fight. You know what I mean? Plenty of them. There are other things just like yourself that, man, I really don't want to fight for. I don't want to go fight and die for leftists for communism, dude. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, like the idea that Hillary Clinton, you know, the idea that I'm 20 years old and eligible for the draft and Hillary Clinton is president. Hillary Clinton has a direct claim on my life.
Yes.
That is terrifying.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You know, especially considering, I mean, thank God she wasn't elected, but man, she was already banging the war drums with Russia, and we could be in a full-on war with Russia right now, for which that draft would be introduced again, dear listener. Believe that. Hillary Clinton just took your life from you. Think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh man, there was one other thing I just want to say, like, this does not in any way speak to what we regard as a moral war. We do not, this doesn't speak to whether we believe that the United States is worth defending or not.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, this doesn't speak to any of that. This is only qua the morality of the law itself, of the draft itself. This doesn't speak to any of the corollary implications of the draft.
Yes. Yes. So, absolutely, man.
Yeah. It depends. Like, I'll say two things. It also depends on like what kind of war is being fought. Like, I'm not going to volunteer to go fight a war under the current rules of engagement.
Right.
I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I think it's a terrible tragedy that our soldiers that are abroad fighting wars basically have their hands tied behind their back under the rules of law, which philosophically itself comes from the just war theory, which we should probably cover at some point. But, yeah, it's totally immoral. I'm not going to go fight that war. If it really is a war worth fighting and we are out to win it at all costs, then I would consider, you know, but I'm not going to do this, under our current, the way we currently fight our wars. And also I think that, again, I'm no psychologist and I would, you know, want to be very careful and delicate the way I say this, but I think that also maybe there would be implications of less instances and to some lesser extent of PTSD, because when I hear veterans talking about PTSD, it's always this like very self-sacrificial context that they put it in. It should have been me. You know, when I was 18 for my Eagle Scout project, I'm an Eagle Scout. For my Eagle Scout project, I didn't want to build a bridge or do something like everybody else does. I wanted to do something a little more meaningful. And I read this statistic that 1,200 World War II veterans were dying each day. And that's something that I was like, man, that is so many stories that aren't being told. So Russ, this is actually the real beginnings of my podcasting career. So I contacted the World War II Museum in New Orleans, which was, I think, run by Stephen Ambrose. I can't remember if he was running it, if he owned it or what, but I actually had correspondence with him, Stephen Ambrose.
Oh, no way. Awesome,
yeah, dude. Man. Yeah, we were like on a first name basis. And I told him for my Eagle Scout. Yeah.
Wow.
I told him for my Eagle Scout project, I wanted to interview 10 World War II veterans and then transcribe the interviews and then donate those to the World War II Museum so they could clip audio and use them in displays and stuff.
Wow.
And so he was like, yeah, absolutely. So he helped me find these guys and I interviewed them. And I mean, I interviewed one guy who invaded Iwo Jima. I interviewed a guy who had escaped from the Nazis twice. He was a prisoner of POW twice and escaped both times. He told me how he escaped. He was a Purple Heart recipient. He fought in Battle of the Bulge. I interviewed another guy who was Golden Glove boxer for the Air Force. I interviewed a guy who fought in World War II and the Korean War. I mean, I interviewed like some pretty people. I interviewed one guy who was on the USS Indianapolis when it was sunk. And he was like on the line. He's one of the survivors of and he told me the whole story about surviving on those life rafts and the sharks it was insane, dude. Yeah. But not a single one of them ever even mentioned anything about PTSD or having some sort of emotional turmoil afterwards. And I mean, these were people, and I asked him, and the guy who was in Iwo Jima, fought in Iwo Jima, he had actually gotten wounded, and he met his wife. I interviewed the both of them because she was a nurse for Iwo Jima, nursing all these soldiers who were being injured. And I asked the two of them, I interviewed them together. They were married, and she was his nurse. And back then, when he was injured, and I asked the two of them, I said, just seeing that, the blood, the carnage, the loss of life, I was like, does that, at a certain point, do you become callous to it? And they were like, no, absolutely not. You never become callous to something like that. But at the same time, they were totally chill about it. You know, they're just like, yeah, that happened, you know? And
dang, man.
They weren't like, yeah, you know, my buddy got killed and I should have been the one to jump on the grenade. And this sort of like very, you know, it was like they really felt like they were there for like a real purpose, and that everybody was behind them. The country was behind them. The politicians were behind them. And they were there fighting a moral war.
Right.
And I wonder if we had an army comprising mostly voluntary members, and we were really fighting the good fight, like if there would be so many instances of this PTSD. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know. This is not my field of expertise, but I think it's a question worth asking.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Fascinating question at that. You know, as you were just talking about this, Luke, I had forgotten. I actually got assigned an English paper at one point in time when I was in college, and it was to interview a war veteran. And so I interviewed a guy from my hometown, and he was Patton's Jeep driver. I'd forgotten all about that until you started talking about Stephen Ambrose and stuff. And it was, God, his stories were incredible, man. Incredible. But, you know, you just think, you know, his job is to guard Patton and to get him from place to place. I mean, he knew General Patton, man, and the stories he would tell were insane, man. It was a hard paper to write, determining, you know, what didn't make the cut in the paper. You know what I mean?
Was he driving the Jeep when Patton was killed?
I don't know. Huh. I don't remember. I did not ask him that. You know what I mean?
Because Patton
I still
was
have
killed
that tape.
In a low-speed Patton was killed in a low-speed. Well, he was injured in a low-speed collision in a Jeep near Mannheim, Germany, and then taken to Heidelberg. And then he died a few days later in a Heidelberg in a hospital in Heidelberg.
That's correct. Yeah. But
I
actually don't think that he was driving the Jeep. I think that he may have been. Okay, this is the way his story ended. He got wounded, and he got shot pretty good, and he was out of the war by the time Patton died. So, yeah. Yep.
Fascinating, man.
Isn't it, though? Isn't it? But
dude, I'm
yeah, man.
I mean,
man. Yeah. You know,
sorry. Go ahead.
Different time, man. Just a different time. And yeah, but I'm intrigued by this PTSD question that you just raised. I'm going to see if I can find out something about it. Somebody else has to have asked this question and found out some data about it, you know? So, yeah. Again, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I've never been in war. I've never seen those kinds of things. So I'm totally unqualified to try and make these kinds of assertions. And I don't think you necessarily need to experience it to try to make an assertion, but you definitely need to know more about it than I do. That's for sure. For sure. I hear you. I feel the same. I couldn't agree more.
So, all right, dude, let's move on, man. That's all for my bots.
Okay. All right. Well, I have hell of bots, dear listener. I'm going to try to just kind of blaze through these as quick as possible. So bot number 1, Army takes 50 tons of gold from ISIS in Syria. I'm reading from an article authored by Eliash Marat of The Mind Unleashed. As the remaining pockets of ISIS fighters faced imminent death in northeast Syria, the United States gave them an offer they couldn't refuse. Give us your massive caches of gold or die. The gold is worth about $2.13 billion. Dear listener, I've got no problem with that at all. I'm happy to have that gold back in Fort Knox. Bot number 2, Joe DeGeneva, dear listener. He was on Laura Ingram's podcast this week, and he said that, well, I'll just read his quote. There's 2 standards of justice, one for Democrats, one for Republicans. The press is all Democrat, all liberal, all progressive, all left. They hate Republicans. They hate Trump. So the suggestion that there's ever going to be civil discourse in this country for the foreseeable future is over. It's not going to be. It's going to be total war. And as I say to my friends, I do 2 things. I vote and I buy guns. Ooh, Mr. DeGeneva. And speaking about guns, dear listener, what have Luke and I always been telling you? They're coming for your guns. The House this week passed 2 bills. I think it was House Resolution number 8 and House Resolution number 1112, I believe they are. They basically restrict private gun sales. And the latter bill is the more dangerous, the one that they passed. I believe they passed it yesterday. It might not have had the votes to pass yet, but it'll pass the House. It creates a system of infinite loop background checks where you're just passed from agency to agency to agency to agency. And these federal background checks are mandated by law, and you never get approved to buy a firearm. So it's gun control through the bureaucratic process. That's what it is. Now, there is one white pilling aspect to this. I had an article pulled up and I can't find it, but this is pretty funny stuff. So in one of these gun bills, and I'm not sure which, there was an amendment attached to it that said that, okay, listen, if an illegal tries to buy a gun in this country, we've got to call ICE. All right. Well, the liberals in the House took that amendment out of the bill. Okay. And of course they did, because they want illegals to buy guns, not you, dear listener. Just stop and think about that for a minute. It's insane. They want illegals to be able to buy guns to kill you with, and they want to restrict your ability to do it. Absolute insanity. But anyway, what happened just as the bill was coming up for a vote, and I believe that this is the one that passed on Wednesday, just as the bill was coming back up for a vote, the House Freedom Caucus was like, okay, we want to put this amendment back in. Like, it's only fair if an illegal tries to buy a gun in this country illegally, which you're not entitled to buy a gun in this country unless you are a citizen or you have a green card. They're like, it's only fair that we should be able to call ICE and get their ass deported from this country, which I think that's fairly reasonable. Well, it turns out that the second time that they raised this amendment, it passed. It got enough Democrat votes in the House to pass. And so that amendment passed along with that first gun control bill. Pretty white pilling stuff. It was a good move on the act of the Freedom Caucus and House Republicans. So I appreciate it, gentlemen and women. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this I'll jump in really quick. This first point about the endless background checks. So I don't think I'm certified anymore, but at one point a couple years ago, I was certified as a professional background screener by the I can't even remember, Certified Board of Professional Background Screeners Association. It was a really long acronym, but it's the Association of Professional Background Screeners. So I know a lot about background screening, and I can tell you that this is total political posturing. This is nonsense. First of all, when you do a federal background check, that's not a background check. Like, right. When was the last time you got arrested for peeing in a national park? Because right. That's what a federal crime is. Yeah. Or tampering with mail. Mm-hmm. Tampering with someone's mail. That's a federal crime. So when you do a federal background check, it's basically not checking anything, because all crimes are handled at the county level. Right. So if you want to do a background check on somebody, you have to go to the county level. Now, only about 40% of counties, it's either 40 or 60. I may get this backwards, but it doesn't matter. It's about half. We'll say 40. Only about 40% of the counties in the United States actually have a database with which to ping, with which to run API calls against. API is, for dear listener who's not tech savvy, an API call is one software asking another piece of software, hey, can you give me this information? And then they give it to them. That's what an API call is. Mm. And only about 40% of the counties are able to do that, which means that the remaining 60%, you have to send somebody physically to the county courthouse and ask for your information. Mm. So if they wanted to really, if this was a in good faith background check, which, you know, if it was in good faith, I don't know that I have that much of a problem with it. I don't want violent criminals, people with violent criminal history, to be able to buy guns. I'm okay with that. I don't know about you, Russ, but and it's very easy to find that out just by doing a county criminal check. It's super easy. It's not hard. You can do it you can have it done in 2 days. It's not a problem. Well, in like Cook County, which is Chicago, I mean, that's just a nightmare. That takes like a month to get that back, to get a background check back from a place like Cook County, where they're just overrun with both criminals and just general population. Yeah, it takes a long time. But yeah, all you do is run an address history. You ping the databases of the counties that have their documents digitized. Then for the remaining ones, you have partner agencies, boots on the ground. They just go to the courthouse. They request your information. They turn it into the background checking agency, and then you have a background check done. And there's other stuff too. There's terrorist watch lists. There's many watch lists, no-fly lists. All that stuff is online. You can ping it super easily. And if they were really serious, if this were a real background checking, if this were a real effort to do background checks, then they would be talking about things like this. They would be talking about, hey, why don't we gather together funding to give the remaining 60% of the counties in the United States the ability to digitize their documents, and then we can do immediate background checks, instantaneous background checks from anybody anywhere in the US.
Yeah.
That would be like a real solution.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it would be using a company that can ping all of the databases that contain terrorist watch lists and no-fly lists.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a real solution. Anytime you hear anybody talking about a federal background check in any context, they have no idea what they're talking about. The taxis do this all the time. They're like, oh, Uber, they don't even do background. To become a taxi driver, all you have to do is pass a federal background check. I mean, you could be in ISIS and pass a background check to become a taxi driver.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you probably have not got caught urinating in a national park.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So this is not in good faith. These are not real background checks. Russ is right. This is a total move to just muddy the waters to make it more difficult to buy guns.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, man. It is about power. It's not about intelligent thinking, man. Man, that's a fascinating example. When you had that job back in the day, we used to talk about that process quite a bit, and I think that you actually made that argument back in the day, and I'd forgotten about that. But man, that's true. That's 100% true. So yeah. But yeah, man, no ideas, smoke and mirrors, control. That's all it is. Take away your freedoms. That's it. That's all it's about. So, what else you got on it, Luke?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Rolling on with bots, dear listener. The Dems are teeing up the DREAM Act once again. I'm reading from a Breitbart piece. It goes thus, taking it from the top. House Democrats on March 12th will reportedly introduce an expanded version of the DREAM Act that will provide protections and a pathway to citizenship for, quote, millions of so-called dreamers. In addition, the bill will also offer increased protections for those with, quote, temporary protected status, or TPS, and refugees who have received deferred enforced departure status. All right, these are, refugees from mainly El Salvador, Somalia, war-torn countries. And speaking of, I forgot to put this in bots. Kirsten Nielsen of the DHS just extended DED status again this week to January of 2020. Yeah, thanks DHS. Appreciate it a bunch. Back to the article. According to a Thursday report in Roll Call, Representative Lucille Roybal Allard, Democrat, California, will introduce the bill, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat, California, who vowed to make the DREAM Act a top priority in this Congress, has already reserved the bill number H.R. 6 for the, quote, Dream and Promise Act of 2019. Get ready for it, dear listener. This is actually quite chilling. This could end up passing. Trump has kind of cucked on the dreamers a little bit in the past. He could end up signing it into law rather than doing the right thing and resisting. And with all of these cucks in Congress and the Blob Party as mobilized as it is, this will have plenty of Republican and Democrat support in both chambers of commerce. This is kind of scary stuff. But we'll stay on. It's bots for now, dear listeners. Someday it won't be. We'll stay on top of it for you, and we'll let you know what's going on. Moving on, Jorge Ramos detained in Venezuela, dear listener. For real, Jorge Ramos got detained in Venezuela. Apparently, Maduro got upset with him because he was showing him videos of children eating out of garbage cans. Sorry, I'm not laughing at children eating out of garbage cans, dear listener. I'm laughing at the fact that Jorge Ramos is so brazen that he thinks that he can do this to a dictator like Maduro and not suffer consequences. He's that arrogant, really. So I don't know. I anytime Jorge Ramos gets detained, I'm happy about it. The news broke. I heard it actually on the Hannity show. I believe it was Tuesday of this week. And Hannity was like, hey, listen, this guy's an American. Not sure I so much agree with you on that, Sean, but, whatever. Next bot, dear listener, Facebook busted once again by Project Veritas. I'm going to read an article from Project Veritas itself, printed on the 27th. I'm taking it from the lead. It goes thus. Project Veritas has obtained and published documents and presentation materials from a former Facebook insider. This information describes how Facebook engineers plan to go about policing political speech. Screenshots from a Facebook workstation show the specific technical actions taken against political figures, as well as, quote, existing strategies taken to combat political speech. Well, of course, they're going after conservatives, right? James O'Keefe in Project Veritas got the proof of it, right? Facebook's reply to this is, quote, they released a statement. They said, we fired this person a year ago for breaking multiple employment policies and using her contractor role at Facebook to perform a stunt for Project Veritas, a spokeswoman told The Verge. Unsurprisingly, the claims she is making validate her agenda and ignore the processes we have in place to ensure Facebook remains a platform to give people a voice regardless of their political ideology. BS, woman. I mean, seriously, you just got straight up busted again censoring political speech. I was going to say something kind of foul, but I'll just let that one go. Next bot, dear listener, all those, you remember the big, beautiful wall prototypes that were in the desert, standing majestically down there in Southern California, kind of outside of San Diego? Well, they've been destroyed this week, dear listener, all 7 of them. I loved those prototypes. They were so beautiful. They made me so hopeful of, seeing that lined up all the way across all 1,200 miles of our long southern border, keeping illegals out, keeping Americans safe. Well, I mean, because, of the spending bill and the restrictions that have been put on the president and his emergency actions that he's taking to build a wall, including now restricting him to only building bollard fencing and continuing the fencing that George Bush and Obama built back in the day, basically. Well, we have no room for those prototypes anymore, and they were destroyed. It was very sad, dear listener, watching that happen. It was just, oh man, it broke my heart. Moving on.
Well, I mean, they could have just left them there because walls don't work,
Right, exactly, right. Why not? Absolutely, yeah, that's right. But I don't know. And that was the other really disgusting thing about it, Luke, is that the left was just shouting with glee, watching these things be destroyed. It was all over Poll. It was all over the comment sections. It was everywhere, I mean,
it is, symbolic.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that is a metaphor.
It is. It certainly is. Every bit as much the wall is a symbol, so is destroying the wall a symbol, just as destroying the Berlin Wall was a symbol. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, that was a symbol, so
anti-fascist wall.
Yeah, that's
that was the original name, but that's the official name of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
Is the anti-fascist
isn't that
wall.
Crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I know. All right, moving on, dear listener. Millennials are saddled with $1 trillion in debt just among age group 19 to 29-year-olds. The vast majority of that trill, of course, is student spending, school costs, student debt. So an entire generation into debt slavery, that is nothing but harrowing. I feel bad for you, millennials. I really do. Sorry to hear it. I truly am. The Green New Death is now calculated to cost $93 trillion, dear listener. That's larger than the entire world GDP. $93 trillion. Okay. And that's still, I think, probably a conservative estimate, to be honest. I think it could top 100 trillion pretty easily if you're going to be honest about it.
Yeah. The true. Yeah. And then there's also the unseen.
Right. The unseen costs.
Yes. Yeah. This is, this is broken window fallacy taken to the largest extreme imaginable, which is that The broken window fallacy is the economic fallacy that says, well, if you break a window, then it creates economic activity because that's good. So economic activity,
yes, this is good.
Yeah,
yes.
is in and of itself good. And they don't consider the fact that you destroyed something. You destroyed something of value. You destroyed value. This is why the Democrats, they're like, oh, well, the hurricane is like, there's a giant spinning economic stimulus coming in off the coast of Florida. You know what I mean? They don't consider the fact that, like, no, you're just basically bringing us back to the, like, rebuilding all those homes and doing all that work, which was created as a result of the hurricane, is just bringing us back to where we were before. We're no better off. So economic activity is not in and of itself necessarily good. Same applies to war, and same applies to the Green New Deal. And what the unseen costs are when you are rebuilding those homes as a result of the hurricane. What are those people now not doing that they would have been doing when they're actually moving us forward?
Right.
Well, we have no idea. They would have been doing something. They're not going to sit at home and wait for hurricanes to blow in.
Right.
They would have been building something else. So there's all of this unseen cost. And I think that the Green New Deal, it's like, who knows where we would be, what we would be doing if not obsessing over that. So, like, it's 92 trillion plus all the unseen costs.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, what Luke just brilliantly detailed, dear listener, we've mentioned this on the show previously in previous episodes of these hallowed halls of HSP. This is Keynesian economics that Luke just illustrated. Yeah, Keynesian economics, and it is complete and total garbage. Luke and I are Austrian economists. I mean, some Chicago school as well, to be fair. We like Thomas Sowell and, plenty of other people, but we don't really like John Maynard Keynes. Another example that I want to call to your attention, dear listener, I guarantee you, there is probably a 50% chance, if you're listening to these dulcet tones here in HSP at this moment, you have been told in school that wars are good for the economy, right? I guarantee you were sold that premise hook, line, and sinker. There is nothing more destructive of economies and material and life in the world than war. To say that wars are good for economies is a lie, and that's pure Keynesian fallacy, just as well as the broken window example.
Yeah, there's a scene in Fifth Element. I love this scene in Fifth Element, where he's talking to the priest. What's the guy's name? It starts with a B, like
Corbin Dallas.
No, that's the hero of the movie. That's the protagonist.
Yeah, that's Bruce Willis.
Yeah,
you're
the
talking
antagonist.
Yeah, gosh, yeah.
Anyways, in this scene, he's the art dealer, and the priest Cornelius, I think it is.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah,
he shows up and he's like, "Oh, you're the so-called art dealer," and he invites him in, and the antagonist is talking, and the priest says something about you're out to destroy life or something like this, and then he goes into this explanation. He pushes the glass off his table and it shatters, and then all these robots come out, and he explains to him that see, this is a flurry of activity. All these engineers and blah blah blah. They can feed their families at night. That it took to clean that glass, to build these robots to clean that glass up. And so, and this is just pure Keynesian economics. I saw that. I thought about that a couple of years ago. I was like, man, he's literally just explaining the broken window fallacy here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I never have made that connection either, but you're absolutely 100% correct. Yes.
Yeah. So you created all those jobs at the expense of something.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Even dear listener, just to underline this point, this is how movies are such propaganda right here. Like that content was packaged and stacked in this movie, and I never even thought about it until Luke just unpacked it for me. But you were sold the Keynesian lie right there, and you might just believe it. You know what I mean? This is how Hollywood operates. This is how they program us. We got to think about these things. We got to be smart. And honestly, dear listener, us on the right, we really kind of need to start making our own movies and our own hard-hitting content. There is a market for it. Fox News isn't enough.
Our
OAN isn't enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We need more.
Yeah. The landscape of our art scene in the West today is so depraved.
It is, man. It is. It truly is. So, yeah.
Well, we could do a whole show just about that, so we should probably move on.
We certainly could. Yeah, we certainly could. So, got some more hate hoaxes in the house this week, dear listener. I'm reading from a Breitbart piece that dropped on the 25th. I'm going to take it from the lead. It goes thus. Michigan prosecutors say Nikki Jolie, a longtime LGBT activist, set fire to her home and killed her pets due to resentment from subsiding controversy over the enactment of non-discrimination legislation he advocated for. The piece goes on to detail, dear listener, that this tranny, which is what she was a tranny, blamed right-wing extremists for burning down her house, a la Jussie Smollett. There you go again. I mean, great. Yeah. Hate hoaxes are endemic among leftists right now, dear listener. We called it like it is. We guarantee you there are going to be plenty more of these hate hoaxes going forward. Believe that. Set your watch to it. Now, speaking of trannies, dear listener, there's a lot of stuff going on with people getting really upset about trannies competing in sports right now. And we're going to read from another Breitbart piece that also dropped on the 25th. Several transgender students have dominated high school track and field competitions in Connecticut for the last few years. And once again, transgender teen runner Adria Yearwood has topped most of the field in state running championships. Yearwood has been running for Cromwell High School in Cromwell, Connecticut for the past few seasons, the Washington Times reported. But this year, Yearwood was not alone in topping the field. Indeed, two transgender students took the top spots in the Nutmeg State. Yearwood came in second place this year as transgender student Terry Miller of Bloomfield High beat Yearwood and the rest of the biologically female field of competitors. Now, dear leftists, you know, this is what you wanted. This is your bed. Lie in it. Everybody's getting all upset about this. What did you think was going to happen? And just to double down on what is happening with this, dear listener, just yesterday, the International Olympic Committee announced that they are going to let trannies compete as opposite genders without even getting the surgery or without getting hormone therapy or any of that kind of stuff. So you can be a straight up man and you just have to say, I identify as a woman, and now you get to compete in women's events when you're not truly transsexual. You haven't really transitioned at all. Man, I hate the Olympics, Luke. Have I ever told you that? I absolutely loathe the Olympics, man.
You didn't tell me. No, you've never told me about that.
Yeah, I hate them so much. I loved them when I was a kid. I'd get so sad when the Olympics would go off, because it was only every 4 years and all this other kind of stuff. And man, I just absolutely despise the Olympics. They're a money laundering operation and a city wrecking operation. And that's all they are, man. So, but anyways, now they're going to let trannies compete for free without even really having to transition.
I wonder if this is, I don't know if the express purpose of this is to pave the way, but I do wonder if a result of this will be, everyone should get a trophy anyway. That way, this isn't a problem.
Right. Couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
This is so nihilistic, dude. It's just completely, the stages are, it's like, okay, let's let women and men compete in each other's sports, right? Then it's, okay, well, why even bother doing that? We should just let everybody compete in one. And then it's okay, well, sometimes it's a little unfair, so we need to give everybody trophies anyway. And you have now completely destroyed the entire purpose of even having it in the first place.
Yep.
Which is to gauge feats of ability and skill, which is normally, to me, pretty exciting and fun to watch. In as much as that's what there is to watch, not to mention all the stuff you mentioned, Russ. But I mean, I enjoy that. It makes me, it gets me excited, makes me, inspires me. You know what I mean? I mean, and it's just this nihilistic desire to destroy values like that.
Sure is, man.
And that's what this is. And they will have destroyed it at the end of the day if they're like, oh, okay, well, let's do away with the gendered sports. Let's do away with that. Everyone competes in one. And then it's not quite fair and it's bad that some people win and some people don't. So let's do away. I mean, you have completely destroyed the value in it entirely. So this is when we talk about the SJWs and these types being nihilists, this is a perfect example of how that nihilism actually plays out.
Certainly. Well said, brother. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it also, it destroys a system of socialization of people, competition of people competing against each other. And, typically people who compete against one another are really tight people, right? But it destroys that competition. And it also really, what I find most nefarious about it, Luke, is that children really learn by competing. And now you've taken away all incentive to compete from children. It's gone. It's completely gone. So, yeah. Crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, I mean, competition can be a pride building, pride building activity, self-esteem building activity through taking pride and having outcompeted others.
Yes, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And also the lessons of losing, you know what I mean? You can't even lose once they corrupt the competition process, because I mean, I think that these are important lessons to learn as well. Yeah. I mean, you learn to lose, so you learn that you hate to lose, so you don't lose anymore.
Yeah. I remember when I was in elementary school, dude, I thought I was I thought I was the cool kid on the block. This was like second grade, I think, or third grade. What's funny is like many, many years later, like 15 years later, this guy ended up being my roommate. But, but, just because, we went through the same school systems together and we kind of ran in the same circle of friends. But I remember in like second or third grade, I thought I was, I played soccer. I was super athletic. I thought that I was the king of everybody in terms of athleticism. And we had these like spring games, sort of like Olympics, but for like little kids in elementary school, where classes would compete with each other. And there were certain events, and we did the sprint race to determine like who we were going to put on our sprinting team. And I was like, oh, I've got this. I've got this in the bag. And man, this other kid, he burned me. It was so bad. And turns out like he ran track when he started running track at a very young age, and he ran track all through his teens. But I remember I learned that lesson in like second grade, or third grade, that like you need that, I was humbled, and had to, you can't just operate on this assumption that you're the best, because maybe there's somebody out there that's better than you. And I learned that, that's a lesson I learned through competition and having gotten beat, So this is important stuff that
for sure
people need to learn. And you could apply this to politics as well. What is socialism if not everybody gets a trophy? If not, there should be no winners and losers. And what is capitalism if not competition in the marketplace? Right. And the best product wins the most amount of money.
Yes.
It's the same thing. It's just one is applied to sports, one is applied to politics.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah, dear listener, Luke and I did a deep dive on this right around HSP number 6-ish, probably around last, July or so. And I think we did a pretty good takedown of this topic that Luke just mentioned. So go back and give it a listen. Yeah, it was episode 6. Yeah. We did a deep dive on socialism. And we talk a lot about this aspect of competition and failure to compete, quite frankly, unwillingness to compete. And if you got some extra time on your hands, go give it a listen. I think we did all right taking down socialism. Yeah. We refer back to that one quite a bit in these hallowed halls, dear listener. We like that. That was a big episode for us. It was seminal, and we quote from it a lot because we really worked on laying our ideas out very succinctly and clearly. So for that purpose, so that we could refer back to that episode just in case. Yeah. And man, look how ahead of the curve we were, Luke. Dang.
Indeed, man. When I saw DemSoc start to becoming a thing, when Bernie was coming around, I was like, okay. When he got cucked out of the race, I was like, okay, let's give it some time. And then once I saw AOC and these other people, I was like, that's it. We need to do this deep dive now, because this is the new thing, and it's going to beat the left, because the traditional neo left, whatever you want to call them, the Nancy Pelosi's, it's going to beat them because democratic socialism is more principled. It's more consistent with their principles. Nancy Pelosi is conflicted. She doesn't know what to think about certain things. It's a matter of pragmatism. It's we want that, but we also need to be realistic.
Right.
Same thing with Dianne Feinstein.
I took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, talking about last week. No, I agree with you. But let's talk about what we can actually get done.
Yeah.
And the Dem Socs are like, no, I don't want to talk about it. We're doing it.
Yeah.
You're on board or you're not. That's Dem Socs. And that's why they're going to win. The left is going to become Dem Soc. And we called it and we said we are doing deep dive now.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. And we were all over it, man. We whipped up a pretty good piece, if I do say so myself, dear listener, which I do. Just kidding. Just trying to have some fun. Well, speaking of all of this Dem Soc stuff, boy, man, AOC, the gift that never stops giving. I'm going to play you a little audio clip from a presentation she gave last weekend, exactly at the same time that Luke and I were recording. Here it goes, dear listener. You ain't going to believe this. This is AOC speaking to the Democrat Party. Keep this in mind, right? She is addressing her comments to the higher-ups in the Democrat Party, not the Republicans. Get ready for this, boy.
Because no one else has even tried. So people are like, oh, it's unrealistic. Oh, it's vague. Oh, it doesn't address this little minute thing. And I'm like, you try. You do it.
Right.
Because you're not. So until you do it, I'm the boss. How about that?
You heard it here.
Dang.
Yeah, I mean.
Dang.
It's
speechless.
Yeah, it's so telling of, these people, they're like, oh, socialism doesn't have to be dictatorial. It doesn't have to be authoritarian. It can be democratic. Man, is it just me, Russ, or is AOC starting to sound like Che Guevara himself?
Totally, man. Yeah. That's it. I'm the boss. How about that?
Yeah, and
that's as authoritarian as it gets, right there.
Yeah,
boy.
And she was on Twitter saying as much as well. She was saying a couple days ago, she was saying something to somebody about like blah blah blah. We're the ones in control now. Yeah, it's like there's nothing democratic about anything that she is. Yeah, dude, she's going rogue and becoming like straight up dictatorial authoritarian.
Yeah,
I mean, she's treating her own like that. Imagine if she were actually in power, debating somebody on the right. Imagine how somebody on the right would get treated by her.
Yeah, man. I know. Well, I mean, it just might happen, man. If Bernie gets the nomination, I really do have the gut feeling that he was signaling that he's going to pick AOC for his vice presidential running mate. And so, she's going to be in a debate with Mike Pence. I mean, my God.
Well, yeah, she couldn't, though, because she has to be eligible for president in the case that Bernie...
that's that is true. I did not consider that. I thought that she could run for vice president. I didn't think there was an age restriction on it. However,
I could be
in the
wrong.
line of succession. Yeah, let us look into that, dear listener. That's an intriguing point right there, though, Luke. And I don't know my stuff about it.
Yeah.
I'll find out. I'll find out about that.
I don't want to content cuck too much, but I don't want to forget about this when we get to it, because, dear listener, in segment 2, we are going to get to some Democratic nominees that have announced their candidacy. And no, that's the wrong words. Some Democrats who have announced their candidacy. Man, I almost exposed us to possible corrections there. So I don't want.
It's all good, man.
I don't want to content cuck too much, but basically, I don't think that the left is ready for Dems. No, not the left. I don't think the American people are ready for democratic socialism. I don't think Bernie's going to get it, dude. I think Biden's going to announce, and I think Biden will get it, or it'll be Beto or somebody else. But I just wanted to say that now so we don't forget, and we can talk about that.
Yeah,
in segment
fair
2.
enough. Yeah, fair enough. It's a good point too. So yeah, and but plenty to talk about once we get there, dear listener. It's just slightly ahead on the trail. But Luke, I want to call your attention, man. You are so right about talking about how AOC is treating her own and how she's just savaging them. Well, there was a piece that dropped on Zero Hedge 2 days ago. It says the title of the piece is "Are Democrats Committing Electoral Suicide?" WAPO says yes. I'm not going to read the Washington Post piece because we don't cite them here at HSP unless absolutely necessary or in order to make a point about leftists happen to agree with us about something, for example, right? The top of the piece goes thus: Democrats are misinterpreting their mandate and dramatically overestimating the popularity of their agenda. In an age where tribalism rules, that's our narrative and we're sticking to it, right or wrong, it is increasingly rare to experience the sensation of someone in the opposing tribe reinforcing our own view of things. That's why it was instructive, if not heartening, to see a long prominent liberal opinion writer at the Washington Post of all places provide unexpected affirmation of what is becoming increasingly clear to conservatives: the Democrats are laying the seeds of their own destruction in the 2020 election. I'm just going to read some quotes that I have highlighted from Richard Cohen's article from the Washington Post. One of these goes thus: I don't quite know what a handbasket is, but the Democratic Party is heading in one to electoral hell with its talk of socialism and reparations. The author has evidently not donned the blinders or rose-colored glasses so many on the left are wearing, in believing their increasingly radical brand of statism will appeal to the broader electorate. To punctuate his point, Cohen continues, quote, the party is ... determined to give Donald Trump a fair shot at re-election by sabotaging itself. In fact, it's veering so far left it could lose an election in 1950s Bulgaria. The piece goes on. AOC is political poison, the product of a freak election in a New York City district where the past has taken root, socialism, and a lot of rot about the evils of capitalism. Ooh, the district where the past has taken root, socialism, and a lot of rot about the evils of capitalism. Ooh, man. So, I mean, we couldn't agree more with you, Mr. Cohen. We happen to think that that's spot on, that the Democrats are, in fact, laying the seeds of their own destruction. We also think that this is a very appealing movement, that it's going to be successful, and it is going to burn down the modern-day blob Democrat Party. We happen to agree with you. Now, dear listener, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. So thank you, Mr. Cohen. I wish you would hold that down. I'm not trying to call out the Democrat mistakes. Shh. We don't need to talk about that. Let's don't talk about that. But we do happen to agree, if we could talk about it, James Woods tweeted out to AOC after that clip that we just played for you just a minute ago. He tweets directly at her. So you may have missed this, but the way it works in America is you work for us. The last time somebody told Americans to sit down and shut up was 1776. If you ever learned to read, look it up. You're not only an idiot, you're an arrogant idiot, and there is nothing more dangerous. Way to go, Mr. Woods. Wow. Now, AOC's victory lap after her, I'm the boss. Until then, I'm the boss. Well, she did this video last weekend. I'm sure everybody's seen it now because it got rinsed out all throughout the mainstream media, the left-wing mainstream media praising it, Fox News really talking down about it. But she's sitting here doing a Periscope recording, and she's got all these hearts flying up. She had a huge audience there, and she's sitting there cooking, looking into the camera, saying, I think that it's a rational question because if this climate change is so dangerous, it's a rational question that children should be asking if it's okay to have children anymore. You get that, dear listener?
I saw that, yeah.
That's unbelievable. Hey, AOC, does this apply to African children? Should African children be asking whether or not it's ethical to have children anymore, you scrunt? That's unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. No, she's addressing that to American children uniquely, dear listener. We are the evil ones. We're the ones who should stop reproducing and let this country go to ruin. That's who she's talking to. She's not talking to children in Africa. She's not even talking to European children. Well, maybe so. Maybe all of Western civilization, but she's not saying things like that to the Chinese, to the Japanese, to the Russian. Well, probably to the Russians, to be fair, right? South Americans, no. It's white America that she addresses that to, straight up. You know what I mean? She didn't say it. That's what she means. What do you think about that, man?
Yeah, it's just totally absurd. This
it is.
I mean, I didn't watch the video. I wanted to, but I'd seen it pop up in the news and then I didn't watch it, but I just forgot about it. But yeah, this is how brainwashed she is.
Yes, it is.
I tweeted about this.
Yes, it is.
She's on this 12-year timeline, right? And I tweeted about this, how this is just literally, it's reached the point of religion to them.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They truly believe in rapture. That's what is going to happen in 12 years. Is that there's going to be this environmental rapture. This single point in time. The doomsday clock is ticking. And it's like, oh, what's the morality of having children through that?
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
probably about the same as it was prior to 200 years ago.
Right.
I mean,
Probably just like it was 50,000 years ago.
are you gonna go back to the Middle Ages and tell everybody don't have kids because
right.
you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just without having seen the video, it's hard for me to comment on it. But I'll just leave it at this. Something tells me that AOC is not qualified to be answering philosophical questions like the morality of having children in today's age.
I think that's probably a fair assessment.
As she's literally cooking, probably with natural gas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the other thing that it was just so crazy, Luke. All right, we're so dangerous to our environment, and our environment is so much more important than us. Then we should just stop. Right? The climate is going to kill us. Why is it ethical for children to have children when this doom is coming that they caused themselves anyway? All while she's sitting here. Man, it's crazy. She's in D.C. She's sitting here cooking up sweet potatoes with some pretty nice kitchenware, putting them into a pot, cooking with natural gas, all of these products of capitalism, not to mention using the phone itself to which she addresses her Periscope audience right there on display for you to see. And she speaks out for socialism.
Yeah.
It's just crazy on its face, man.
It is. Yeah. I mean, she's a walking celebration of fossil fuels when she's doing all these things.
She sure is. Yeah. She sure is. Yeah.
All right, dude.
She sure is.
We should move on, man. What you got next?
Yeah, let's ride. All right. So, dear listener, this is kind of a big deal. This was in my bots for last week, and I took it out. Man, Justin Trudeau is in some hot water, dear listener. He might actually have to resign as a Canadian Prime Minister. What the basic gestalt is this. He apparently, well, how do I explain this? All right, he was involved in some corruption involving some engineering firms, covering some things up in the Canadian court system, right? And he got busted running cover for this Canadian engineering firm, okay? Well, not only did he get busted, like, you know, his best friend, his political kind of advisor quit, like right as these things started coming to light. And suddenly the Canadian AG steps down, right? It was a really mysterious thing, but it turns out she testified this week and she was bullied out of office by Trudeau, looking like he was trying to cover up that he covered up the crimes of this Canadian engineering firm. Ooh, dear listener, this is so far beyond Russia. It's crazy. And he might have to go. I mean, like, he's got 50% of his country against him right now, directly against him, saying he should step down in polling. 50% say he should step down. And like their political commentariat up there in Canada is saying, you know, even the leftist political commentariat is saying, man, he's lost the moral authority to govern. He's got to go. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy stuff, man. Is that news reaching across the pond, Luke, or is that not so much?
Yeah. The news over here is really just about Trump. And it's actually just one little this week in American politics in the morning radio for like, and I don't understand everything because my German is not quite there yet, but I can kind of tell what they're saying. And it's like literally 2 sentences. That's like all the foreign news for the most part.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, leftist media around the world is really kind of trying to cover it up. You know what I mean? Obviously, because I mean, it's a leftist racket and they want to run cover for their boy. But they're not going to be able to do it this time. It doesn't seem like this is serious corruption. You know what I mean? And I mean, political bullying. You know, and I think he's going to probably, if he doesn't step down, he's a lame duck already. You know what I mean? That's just the bottom of the line, you know, or the bottom line rather. So, all right, dear listener, I've got 10 more bots, so I'm going to just blaze through them. I'm just going to tell you what they are. I already told you about one. DHS extends temporary protected stay. The God Emperor Trump himself is being sued for sexual harassment because he kissed a campaign aide. Impeach. What's their names? Omar and Rashida Tlaib have signed on to a petition to make sure that Trump gets impeached. The Horde demands. They walked across the bridge in Laredo earlier this week and demanded refugee status right then and there. Trump's really weighing in on the abortion debate right now. AOC lies about Don Jr. This is on our radar. She just told a straight up lie about something from the Cohen testimony, which proved out to be a misquote by Cohen. He said that Don Jr. was culpable of some type of crime. He was not. That was somebody else in the Trump organization, and not in the capacity of working for Trump. Anyway, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez put it on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? And it got called out for it handily about like, yo, this is already debunked. This is a lie. Here you are spreading lies. And she's like, what's untrue about the fact that he said this? What's untrue? Okay, well, AOC, he told the lie. You now, all right. Cohen told the lie. He made a mistake. That does not make it okay for you to report it because it is a lie, right? You are not telling the truth by reporting a lie. You're telling a lie. It's just this girl, dude. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. We're going to be talking about her forever on HSP, dear listener. I mean, she's going to step in it over and over and over again. India and Pakistan they're getting into pretty heated conflict right now, dear listener. It's on HSP's radar. We know about it. Oh man, this is really black pilling. Susan Collins and Tom Udall unveiled the Senate version of a bill on Thursday that would terminate President Donald Trump's national emergency, allowing him to build a wall on the southern border. Yeah, thanks, Susan Collins. I mean, I told you, dear listener, you always got to keep your eye on Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. These people will cuck on you, and they will lie to you, and they will stab you in your back. And so these are the types of people in the Republican Party who really, truly scare me. So never take your eye off the ball on those two. They got him. I'm reading from a Zero Hedge piece right now. Remember, Luke and I called out in bots the attack that happened at Berkeley last week where an Antifa guy slapped around, what's his name, Hayden Williams?
Oh, no, he punched him in the face.
Punched him in the face. Yeah, man. Yeah. Ripped his bag off of him, punched him in the face. Berkeley said that they were going to investigate and prosecute. Nobody in the world believed him. Well, it turns out that they did arrest him yesterday. So, I mean, hey, Berkeley,
awesome.
Thanks.
So
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. His name is Zachary Greenberg. He's 28 years old, known Antifa member. Hayden Williams is going to sue, and he has gotten none other than the illustrious Harmeet Dillon to volunteer to do his legal services for free. She's the Fox commenter, dear listener. She lives in San Francisco, conservative, and she is a badass, heavy-hitting attorney, and she's working for free for Williams. He's probably going to win that lawsuit if he sues.
That is so awesome, dude. God, yeah, that puts me in such a good mood.
I know, man. Me too. That story broke immediately before we hit the record button, man. And yeah, I just zapped it into our show prep real quick. I was really white pilled about it too. And this last thing is kind of white pilling as well, dear listener. Luke, have you heard about the DFU movement?
Oh yeah,
going on right now. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, like, dear listener, according to Urban Dictionary, DFU means to disavow any connection with your family, like some whiny ass emo. I'm not going to say the word in these hallowed halls, but it is a derogatory term that starts with a P, and it refers to a woman's anatomy. Okay. So there is this movement is really gaining steam where, you know, like you should disavow people that you love and your family members because they're leftists. Even Stefan Molyneux got into the fray. He tweeted on February 25th. He tweeted a series of sentences that go thus: disown leftists. Seriously, get them the hell out of your life. Ostracism is the last hope to stop detention camps, starvation, and totalitarianism. Maybe the social shock of being shunned will waken them. If they win, you're going to be separated anyway, just on their terms. Okay, you know what? I get it. But listen, dear listener, I do actually have liberals in my life and in my family who I love very much. And I'm not going to defoo them, you know what I mean? Just because we happen to not agree politically, just because they're foolish in terms of their politics and haven't seen the light yet, I'm not going to disown them. These are people I truly love and care about. So I'm not sure what I think about this DFU business. What do you think about it, Luke? I don't know.
Well, I think Stefan Molyneux started the DFU movement like a long time ago, like a year or two or even longer ago.
I'll be.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Almost certain he is the originator of the word DFU.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I can just imagine his voice. He's like, "It's time. There are no more arguments. It's time.
It's time to DFU."
Yeah, dude. Like, this is it's the same. It's the flip side of the same coin that the left does when they're like, "Oh, you're a Trump supporter. I'm not going to be friends with you anymore." It's just the same thing. And when you think in response, like, really, like, we do is play music together, or we both share an interest in movies, and you're the person I go to the movies with, and now this is it. This is what you want to destroy that value over, you know? Anytime somebody comes out with some sort of categorical moral imperative like this, I always find it suspect because it just removes context. It's like we as individuals all have context. I have context around the people that I have relationships with, the friendships that I form, family, all sorts of stuff. I mean, I've got family, like cousins, aunts, uncles who are definitely leftist. And I mean, one of them very much so. And I actually went and visited him recently, like less than a year ago. And and I actually tried to engage him in an intellectual conversation, and you know, we had some back and forth, and it was very, you know, respectful. And we're not gonna, and dude, believe me, Russ, like, we are on opposite ends. You couldn't get more opposite than he and I. And we had a perfectly respectful conversation. We had a couple beers. It was good fun. I've got another friend that is a huge leftist, but he is a really, really good musician, and I would love to collaborate with him someday in some capacity. So there's this, I mean, you just have to consider context, and there are facts, and you derive value from facts. And
that's right.
And when I say context, what that really means is it's not, you know, in the context, and actually it's funny, this is all coming to mind because Robert and I are slated to record Random Walk tomorrow, this Fact and Value episode. We didn't, dear listener, we didn't record last week's Random Walk because Robert had some things come up. I was tired because Russ and I rolled tape for 5.5 hours the night before. So recording that show. So Robert and I are supposed to do this tomorrow. Hopefully it'll work out this time. But in any case, like, you know, in the context of man-made, when we say context, we mean in this context, like man-made facts. And when we say man-made facts, we really mean like things that people are doing, the actions that they are taking. And the context is not the actions in and of themselves necessarily, but the effects and potential effects upon you and your life. So if you've got a leftist friend who is okay with with engaging you intellectually, but they, for the most part, keep it to themselves and the people that they want to just have private conversations with, who cares? That not only does that not have an effect on you, but it also doesn't have the potential to have an effect on you either, because they're more or less keeping it to themselves. You can engage with those people. But if they're a professor of philosophy brainwashing children into Marxism, well, that's a different potential effect that it might have on you. So like, you have to consider context. And anytime I hear these like categorical moral imperatives, I mean, this is like this Kantian categorical imperative, I just immediately am just like, okay, you just dropped all context here.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, context does matter. And, you know, your mileage may vary on this defoo thing, dear listener. I mean, maybe you're tired of leftists to the point that you just want them the hell out of your life, like Stefan Molyneux is encouraging, and people are really starting to talk about just literally shunning the left. You know what? That's cool. I mean, that's your context. That's the way you want to roll. I get it. Now, I have severely limited the amount of leftists in my life since the 2016 election. Like, I probably am not going to take on water by befriending new leftists anymore. You know, probably not, right? But, you know, I'm not going to be throwing people out of my life just because they're leftists, except for something egregious in the context of our relationship. There is somebody, a very close friend of my parents, who, I probably shouldn't get into too much detail about who she is because I don't want to dox her. But she, after the election, the night of the election, she put up on her Facebook, like, every single Trump supporter, F you, get out of my life right now. I don't ever want to talk to you again. Leave me alone. Get out of my life. You know what I mean? And so like, that's kind of like my whole family right there that knew this woman. You know what I mean? And, dang, man. I mean, if that's the way you feel, I'm happy to let you go, you know, and this is the context of that relationship. But like Luke is absolutely right. You can't make a draconian policy about all people, right? That's what rightism is about. Individualism, right? Not collectivism and collective castigation. You know what I'm saying, Luke?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's another topic that I want to write on. Is like the destructive nature of collectivism that has on one's thinking and ability to understand the world around them. But yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I 100% agree with you. And I mean, I love people. I derive a lot of value through human relationships, and way more value than it is that I need to impose ostracization upon them because of their political beliefs, even if they harbor them privately. I mean, that's totally absurd on its face.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. All right, let's rip and run, man. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. Are you still got more bots, or are you done?
No, that's it for bots, man. The DFU was the last bot.
All right, cool.
So
yeah, well, let's where are we at? We're at about an hour.
An hour and a half, dude.
Let's try and knock out
Cohen.
Yeah, let's knock out Cohen. Let's try and do it in like 10 minutes because this has been so
I think we can do that. You know, because I mean, dear listener, there's really not much to say about Cohen, right? Really what this was, I mean, let me just tell you, it was an event set up by the leftist Congress to distract from the North Vietnam summit, or the North Korea summit in Vietnam, and to further their agenda of trying to impeach the president. Now, you know, from the outset, a couple of things that should be said about the reason, the entire pretext for Cohen going and testifying on Capitol Hill was Russia, Russia, Russia. In particular, he was going to be asked about the dealings that went on between Trump and Putin when he was trying to get Trump Tower built in Moscow, okay? But this spun all the way out of control. That was not about Russia in the first place, ever. It went into all kinds of topics like Stormy Daniels, like the Natalia Veselnitskaya meeting with Don Jr. and Trump Tower, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just trying to sling mud at the president and take away from the success he was probably going to have in the North Korea summit, which actually didn't turn out that way. We don't want to content cuck, though. We'll get ahead to it in just a little bit. Now, in this segment, I've got to say, dear listener, I've been reading mostly Conservative Treehouse this week, and Sundance has been doing a bang-up job of making some really compelling arguments about what's going on with the left right now. He has a piece that dropped on the 27th on Conservative Treehouse. I'm going to take it from the lead. It goes thus. Those who follow closely will note Speaker Pelosi's plan to weaponize congressional oversight is a carefully orchestrated campaign with three key figures, Adam Schiff, Elijah Cummings, and Jerry Nadler. All of whom were prominent in this grilling of Michael Cohen. Representative Jody Heiss questions Michael Cohen about the construct and background of his congressional appearance. Within the answer, Cohen admits his handler, Democrat operative Lanny Davis, coordinated with key congressional leadership to include Oversight Chairman Elijah Cummings and HPSCI Chairman Adam Schiff. Now, what he's saying here, dear listener, okay, it was actually Jim Jordan who busted this in the testimony. He was like, have you talked to anybody on the committee before today? And Cohen's like, yeah. Oh, okay. Who'd you talk to? Well, I talked to a committee membership. My legal team met with them. All right. Now, this is Lanny Davis, dear listener, former Clinton attorney, now representing Michael Cohen, right? Michael Cohen is their best hope to get Trump right now. And remember, they hated him in the beginning. You know what I mean? They went after him guns blazing because he lied in Congress. They threw the book at him, and he's going downtown, dear listener, probably for at least 3 years, probably really a year for good time served, like they did with Weiner, right? But they hated him just a short time ago. Now they love him, right? So much that Lanny Davis, Clinton's old attorney, Democratic hitman, is representing him for free, right? Representing him in Congress for free. Well, Lanny Davis goes and meets with Elijah Cummings and Adam Schiff before the testimony ever even happened. I mean, does this sound ethical to you? This is a big deal, dear listener. Like, he went and met with the committee who was supposed to grill him about all of this stuff about Russia. What did they tell him? Did they give him the debate questions, just like Hillary was given the debate questions before the CNN debate? I mean, this is really putting your thumb on the scale. And even Jim Jordan said it. He was like, have you met with anybody on the committee? Yes. Who'd you meet with? My team met with Adam Schiff and with Representative Cummings. Whoa, really? What'd you talk about? We were just talking about the, what was going to happen in the meeting. Oh, okay. So you weren't talking about what time it is, where it's going to be, what you're supposed to wear. You were talking about the actual questions that they were going to ask you in this meeting. I'm sorry to laugh, but it's just crazy, dear listener, because this whole system is so rigged. It's just so corrupt. Anyway, a little bit more meat on Lanny Davis. When Cohen got prosecuted for lying to Congress, Lanny Davis set up a GoFundMe account for Cohen's legal expenses, and it has been blossoming. It's called the Michael Cohen Truth Fund, dear listener. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? Now, dear listener, Luke and I haven't really said this, but there's something going on with GoFundMe right now. And think about Ballsy Ford, right? How much money was raised for her legal defense fees? Way more than she needed for her legal defense. They raised over north of $1 million. She didn't need anywhere near that for her legal defense at all, right? So are these payoff schemes that are being orchestrated right out there in the public, right? A lot of people were saying that about Ballsy Ford because she raised so much money. Is somebody paying her to testify the way that she did? Is somebody paying Michael Cohen to testify the way that he's testifying right now? I mean, we're never going to find the smoking gun evidence of that, dear listener, because GoFundMe and all these other payment platforms are very good about protecting privacy. But that said, they are so good about protecting privacy, indeed.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah. Privacy, that anybody could funnel money. Any political operative could funnel money to anybody through GoFundMe. That's just the way it is. I mean, is this happening? We don't know. It's an intriguing question, though. Maybe something will break about it someday. Maybe not. Well, dear listener, all of this really amounted to nothing. I mean, Luke and I were talking about the content, that we had in the show prep this week, and we're like, damn, man, let's spend a lot of time on bots because, Michael Cohen and the North Korea summit sucked all the oxygen out of the week, which is true. You know what I mean? It's absolutely true. And then the Cohen thing really turned out to be a complete nothing burger. I hate that term, but it really turned out to be nothing.
Dude, I like
I really
that term,
don't want.
honestly.
Do you?
I think it's, I used
actually,
to.
I kind of do too.
I used to not like it. It's become funny somehow.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. When I heard Van Jones say it about Spygate, I think it's a nothing burger. I kind of began to like the tone, of it then. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, dear listener, I mean, really, he put some points on the board in his opening statement, and in every other regard, Jim Jordan ripped everything down. Mark Meadows also did a really good job of ripping his arguments apart. They have referred him for criminal prosecution to the new Attorney General, Bill Barr. He probably will be prosecuted because he perjured himself in front of Congress again, dear listener, 5 different times. 5 different times. What an idiot, man. I mean, I guess he figures he might as well perjure himself in front of Congress again. I mean, he's already going downtown. He already got busted once, Why not perjure himself again, right? Yeah, why not, right? So anyway, some of the things that he outlined in his opening remarks where I think that they kind of put some points on the board against the president. I'm just going to list a couple. I'm reading from a New York Mag piece. There's a bullet list. I'm going to read a couple of them. Cohen provides a copy of a check Mr. Trump wrote from his personal bank account after he became president to reimburse me for the hush money payments I made to cover up his affair with an adult film star and prevent damage to the campaign. Okay. He showed that check, waved it around there in Congress, presented it to Congress, right? I mean, this is really evil stuff, dear listener. What about attorney-client privilege, man? I mean, this guy, Cohen, has been disbarred. I mean, clearly he's the most unethical attorney ever to walk the face of the earth. He absolutely deserves his disbarment, scumbag, right? He also said in his opening remarks, he claims that, quote, Roger Stone was talking with Julian Assange about a WikiLeaks drop of the Democratic National Committee emails, a direct connection that both Stone and Assange have denied. Quote, in 2016, days before the Democratic convention, I was in Mr. Trump's office when his secretary announced that Roger Stone was on the phone. Mr. Trump put Mr. Stone on the speakerphone. Mr. Stone told Mr. Trump that he had just gotten off the phone with Julian Assange and that Mr. Assange told Mr. Stone that within a couple of days, there would be a massive dump of emails that would damage Hillary Clinton's campaign. Mr. Trump responded by stating to the effect of, wouldn't that be great? this is all BS, dear listener. Every last bit of that Michael Cohen just said is a lie. That is an absolute lie. All of it, right? I mean, Roger Stone denies it. Julian Assange denies it. The president himself has denied it. And there is no proof. So you can't just keep saying stuff like this without the evidence to back it up, because these are scathing indictments of someone's character and forthrightness regarding the law. Cohen goes on. He provides more alleged examples of Trump's racism. Quote, he once asked me if I could name a country run by a black person that wasn't a, quote, shithole. This was when Barack Obama was president of the United States. While we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way. And he told me that black people would never vote for him because they were just too stupid. All right. So call him a racist, right? I doubt seriously. I mean, there's no reason to believe Michael Cohen about anything, dear listener. He has now lied to Congress 10 different times in order to cover his own ass. I mean, when this happens in a court of law, all of this witness's testimony, if this wasn't a corrupt, rigged government, if this was in a court of law, all of a compromised witness's testimony would be removed from the record. That's just the bottom line of it. Yeah, it would be, because they're not credible in any sense.
We should also mention here that he is going to jail because he was convicted of lying.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And, this is the Democrat star player to bring down the president, and
this is all that they have.
Yeah, it is. This is all
literally, that's it.
Yeah, no ideas, no nothing. This is all they have. Yeah.
The entire thing was a giant nothing burger.
Yeah, it was. Sure was, man. Sure was. Well, after these intro remarks that Cohen made, Candace Owens came out before the testimony was even over, and she says, should I go nuclear on Michael Cohen, who I know from years ago and who tried to approach me last summer to help, quote, change the narrative, also known as a lie, about the president? Owens asked, adding, because I'm thinking I should. This coward plotted this entire, quote, racist lie to save himself. Ooh, dear listener, you understand what Candace is saying here. She's saying that Michael Cohen approached her to help him change the narrative against Trump to call him a racist, right? And she just came out and said, this scumbag came at me last summer trying to get me to, throw digs at the president. Yeah, right? I believe her. She must be believed. She must be believed. Mr. Jordan put some more points up on the board, and they go this way. I'm going to read the cross-examination, dear listener. And also what was going on is this was a public hearing, right? So these are time limited by 5 minutes, right? So a lot of Republicans would get in and, make a small refutation to a point that Cohen had just made, but they always kind of punted the rest of their time back to Jim Jordan. So Jim Jordan got to ask most of the questions because, man, he's doing the work. He's been really smart about this whole thing with Cohen, and I think that he really gets what's going on with Russia, the whole Spygate scam, and I think he gets what's going on with Cohen too, and I think he knows things that we don't know, along with Devin Nunes, right? Mr. Cohen, how long did you work in the White House? Jordan asked. I've never worked in the White House, Cohen replied. That's the point, isn't it, Mr. Cohen? Jordan followed up. No, sir. Yes, it is. No, it's not. You wanted to work in the White House. No, sir. You didn't get through. You didn't get brought to the dance. Sir, I was extremely proud to be a personal attorney to the President of the United States of America. I did not want to go work at the White House. I was offered jobs. I can tell you a story of Mr. Trump, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Who cares, dear listener? Who cares, right? But it comes out that once Jim Jordan said that, right, all of a sudden Eric Trump tweets out, he was like, yeah, as a matter of fact, that son of a bitch did want to work in the White House. He thought he should be chief of staff. This was a meme joke in the campaign for the entire campaign from the beginning, how badly Michael Cohen wanted to work for the White House, right? So what we have established here, dear listener, is a motive for why Michael Cohen might cuck the president this way, because he's pissed off about not being hired as chief of staff, right? Motive established. There you go. Way to go, Jim Jordan. Way to go, man. There was some other heat that happened. Rashida Tlaib called Mark Meadows a racist. What was going on was they had brought up a woman who's worked for Trump for forever. Her name is Lynn Patton. She worked for the campaign. She was introduced to the president by Michael Cohen, actually. And she and Cohen were like best buds, right? And so anyway, the president loved her to death and hired her. Well, Mark Meadows brought her up in the testimony and probably kind of tried to browbeat Cohen about when he was calling him racist, and, brought her there. And Rashida Tlaib ends up calling her a prop. This black woman, Lynn Patton, called her a prop and called Mark Meadows a racist for bringing in a black prop, like a slave on the auction block, as somebody at CNN said this week, right? Just straight up called him a racist, right? Well, Mark Meadows flipped out, dear listener. I mean, absolutely flipped out. And he went to Elijah Cummings. He's like, yo, this has got to be taken out of the record right now. I'm not a racist. My nieces and nephews are people of color, okay? For this woman to call me a racist is racist. You're the racist, right? Way to stand up, Mr. Meadows. Way to stand up. But anyways, so Elijah Cummings shouted down Rashida Tlaib and was like, do you want to re-clarify what it is that you just said? Oh, no, I wasn't calling him racist. I was just calling him racist. That's pretty much what she said, dear listener. That's pretty much what she said. Well, anyways, after, they went to break, Mark Meadows approached Rashida Tlaib and was like, hey, listen, if I offended you, I just want you to know I didn't mean to offend you. It didn't come from my heart. I'm not calling you a racist. I think you just treated me very racistly, and don't call me a racist again. She turns around and gives him a hug. Dear listener, Rashida Tlaib gives Mark Meadows a hug. Like, oh, it's all good. We're just doing political theater here. This doesn't matter. Just crazy, man. All right. So anyways, I've already mentioned that they're going, Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan are referring Cohen for criminal referral to the DOJ. I imagine he will be accused. Dear listener, and probably have to go downtown once again. But I wanted to play something, a little bit of audio here, dear listener. It's about a 3-minute clip of a Koster just gloating about this. And here goes the audio. It was on CNN. It goes thus.
The obvious, which is the president steered clear largely during this news conference of the White House press corps and was instead selecting journalists at random from the other side of the room where there were foreign journalists seated. He didn't even know who he was calling on. At times he was calling on reporters from Russian state media, Chinese state media, Sean Hannity from Fox, and largely just avoiding taking questions from the White House press corps. I think that was by design. That was because he didn't want to really answer the questions about Michael Cohen. One question out of this entire news conference about Michael Cohen was asked of the president, and as you heard there in that comment you just played a few moments ago, the president referring to the Michael Cohen testimony as a fake hearing, and the president was also cherry picking.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. So, yeah, what's going on here, dear listener, is you see right there in Jim Acosta's very speech, in his very tactic, in his very strategy, what he's doing. He wants to talk about Cohen, and the president just really abused the White House press corps because he didn't want to talk about didn't want to take any questions about the Michael Cohen hearing. He just wanted to go ahead and talk about the summit and why he walked away, right? That is direct proof that Michael Cohen is being used to distract from the summit, right? To try to put political runs against the president when he's out fighting for our country. Now, we're going to talk more about the North Korea summit in a little bit, dear listener. There's some interesting stuff going on with it. But anyway, Acosta just goes on to gloat in this clip about, it was just a really bad week for the president and, for him to just completely fail in his negotiations. And now he's going to have to go back to D.C. with no runs put on the board. And all of those questions about Michael Cohen will be waiting for him. You son of a bitch. I swear to God, man, this guy just disgusts me. Well, anyway, dear listener, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to let Tucker Carlson say it, but I am going to content cuck a little bit. Cohen gave away the farm in this hearing. There is no campaign finance violations. He proved it. There is no Russia collusion. He proved it. There is no blackmail material on the president. Remember, how many times have we heard Nancy Pelosi in how many settings say, what does Vladimir Putin have on the president? What does he have on him politically? What does he have on him personally? Implying that Putin is blackmailing Trump, and therefore Trump is taking an easy stance on Russia, which is all false on its face. But Cohen just proved that there's no blackmail material on him. I'm not going to get ahead of myself yet, dear listener. I'm going to let Tucker Carlson explain it because he does a better job than we ever could. It was a really hilarious piece. And we'll get there in just a minute at the break. But there is one last thing about, what's going to happen going forward, dear listener. We got to take this in context, right? What is this in the context of? What's happening here, right? Well, you had somebody, I can't remember who it was. Was it Matt Lauer? No, it wasn't. But somebody on NBC News, I believe it was, dear listener, please get back at me and let me know who it was. I don't have that audio pulled, but I saw it. But one of their reporters said, this is the first hearing of President Trump's impeachment. That's what he just said. Really?
Oh, my
All right.
God.
Yeah, no, bro. Yeah, this wasn't an impeachment hearing. No, it wasn't. Not to mention what just happened. The entire narrative with which you Democrats are trying to impeach the president fell apart completely. Cohen cucked you. Ha, ha, ha. Enjoy it. I'm going to read a piece from One More Sundance piece at the Conservative Treehouse. I'm taking it from paragraph 2. It goes thus. Remember, the testimony of Michael Cohen is the cornerstone of the effort. Cohen's testimony was organized immediately following the 2018 midterm election. This nonsense is all sequenced by design. The House Intelligence Committee plans to question Felix Sater, a longtime business associate of President Trump involved in efforts to build a Trump property in Moscow, in a public hearing in March. Committee's chairman, Adam Schiff, Democrat, California, told reporters on Thursday. Schiff said the open hearing with Sater is scheduled for March 14th and would focus on the Trump-Moscow discussions. Now, this is really important right here, dear listener. There is something that I really was not too red-pilled about. Nancy Pelosi changed the rules of the Oversight Committee when she got the gavel back, when she became Speaker of the House again. And here's what she did. It used to be called the Committee on Oversight and Reform. I'm sorry. It used to be called the Congressional Committee on Government Oversight and Reform. Government was taken out, right? She also changed the rules of the Oversight Committee in terms of she wrote that, just changing the rules at willy-nilly herself, saying the role of the Oversight Committee is to monitor the White House, right? It's not about government oversight anymore. It's not about congressional oversight anymore. It literally is coded in their own rules. Now it is about White House oversight. And so what are they going to do, dear listener? They're going to investigate, impeach. I am putting it on the books, dear listener. Start looking for a fall vote on impeachment. That's when it's going to go down. This is all the Democrats will do. This is all they will work on. And they're going to waste themselves in the process. I'm also going to formally predict this as well, dear listener. Okay. If they impeach the president, if it actually happens, and I think it will, if they do this in the fall, like I think they will, they lose everything in the midterms next year. They get blown out. If they actually go through with this impeachment thing, they lose the House, they lose the Senate, and they lose the election. I was about to say,
bring impeachment on. Like,
yeah, man, yeah, absolutely.
I would be really excited about impeachment because, it's two things. One is I don't think people will respond well to it. That's one. Yeah. Then the second thing is that it forces the Dem Sox, Ocasio-Cortez, and all these people who are otherwise quite silent on all of this. They don't care. They're out to forward their agenda. It forces them to have to acknowledge it, and their lack of acknowledging it in the primaries. If they don't want to talk about it in the primaries, then it implicitly communicates that this is all just a big ruse.
Yeah.
So so the Dem Sox are going to have to take this on. And if they don't, then it's admitting it's all a big ruse. So it's really putting them in a difficult position.
It sure is, man. It sure is. Yeah, it most certainly is. And, they're throwing all rules of conduct and ethics out the window. And these chickens will come home to roost one day when there's a Democrat president. I mean, man, just wait, dear listeners, till the Republicans skewer this person. And I mean, justifiably so, because we've lost 2 years of the first term of the president of the United States. It's just been consumed by these shitlibs. You know what I mean? And they're not going anywhere. Now they actually have a chamber of Congress, and they're going to exploit it to the fullest. And but I'm with Luke on this one. Yeah, let him step in this one. I hate for our president to have to deal with this. I hate for him to not be able to put legislative runs on the board. But still, let him do it. Let them reveal themselves. Let them piss off the American people. And bring it. Impeach.
Yeah, sure, man. All right, dude. Are we ready to move on? Because we are running way over on time already.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Yeah. All right, dear listener, we're going to run to break real quick. We're going to play some Tucker Carlson audio for you. And this happened on Thursday night. It was his opening monologue. It was absolutely hilarious. Trump himself, as soon as that monologue was over, before Tucker even got off the air, he was like, "Must see Tucker Carlson tonight." So, Mr. President, we know that you happen to we happen to know that you listen to HSP. So we're playing this one for you, Mr. President. Dear listener, we're also playing this for you as well. This is 9 minutes and 31 seconds. Luke and I are going to go to break, refresh beverages and the like. Enjoy Tucker Carlson's piece. We'll be back at you before you know it.
Decade as Trump's high-profile lobbyer, toady, defender, and personal attorney. And then one day he decided that he hated Donald Trump and became Donald Trump's mortal enemy. A big change. How did that happen? Well, Cohen told Congress this week that he had a kind of road to Damascus experience. He was personally and morally offended by what his boss said in two occasions. First, after the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, that was the summer of 2017, and later when he watched Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, Finland, about a year later. Those two scandals, both of them fraudulent, entirely manufactured by the left and its servants in the media, changed Michael Cohen's mind forever. Democrats must have been gratified to hear that. Michael Cohen is a sensitive progressive now. He is tormented by climate change and his own toxic masculinity. He's basically a one-man crusade against privilege. He's a new man. That's his story. Well, now comes a Daily Mail piece that puts a different gloss on it. Turns out, just weeks before the FBI raided his offices last summer, Michael Cohen was shopping a book proposal. In the manuscript, which the Daily Mail has, Cohen professes love and admiration for Donald Trump. In the book proposal, Cohen defends the president against claims that he is, quote, crazy, dumb, paranoid, in over his head, or a liar. All claims that Cohen made this week before Congress. Keep in mind that Cohen wrote the book proposal well after Charlottesville and Helsinki, those scandals that just changed him as a man. Turns out that Michael Cohen is not a very reliable narrator, but too late. He's the narrator the Democrats have chosen, and they're stuck with him. They brought him to Capitol Hill yesterday in the hope, the expectation that he would prove the Russia conspiracy true. He didn't. Instead, he demolished that conspiracy. Nobody on the left wants to admit that, but we have the tape. Let's start with the claim that Cohen held secret meetings with Russian agents in Prague in an effort to steal the 2016 election. On its face, it sounds nuts, but they've been telling you that for years.
McClatchy's reporting right now that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has evidence that Trump's personal lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen, secretly made a late summer trip to Prague during the 2016 presidential campaign. According to two sources familiar with the matter, confirmation of the trip would affirm part of the Steele dossier.
When I hear now that there are reports that Mr. Cohen was in Prague, despite his denials, repeated denials, there is more and more indications that there is something here that is far, far from being anything near a witch hunt.
So that was John Brennan. Whatever his faults, he was literally the head of the CIA, the most powerful intelligence agency in the world. And as you just saw, he claimed to believe that. Oswald went to Mexico City. Cohen went to Prague. It's the perfect conspiracy. Except that Michael Cohen has never been to Prague. He testified to that yesterday. And by the way, he'd have no incentive to lie about it.
You ever been to Prague?
I've never been to Prague.
Never have.
I've never been to the Czech Republic.
You might balance my time.
Never been to Prague, but I kind of like the music. How frustrating it must have been for Adam Schiff to hear that. Never been to Prague. This was the part where Michael Cohen was supposed to admit swapping microfilm with Vladimir Putin in the sauna at the Prague Marriott. Instead, he looked kind of mystified and admitted he'd never even been to the country. Michael Cohen is from Long Island. He pretty much stays there. Okay, let's try this again. How about the claim that Vladimir Putin's agents have video of Donald Trump cavorting with hookers, and that's how they've managed to blackmail Trump into saying nice things about Russia? We've been hearing about that since the day BuzzFeed first claimed it.
The most incendiary claim in the Steele dossier was, of course, that a foreign adversary, Russia, has dirt on the President of the United States, exposing the president to blackmail.
Is the possibility, the very real possibility, that President Putin holds damaging information over President Trump.
What do the Russians have on Donald Trump? Politically, personally, or financially?
Yeah. Okay. If there's a hooker tape out there, I think it's fair to assume that Michael Cohen would know about it. He's that kind of guy, a hooker tape kind of guy. Now would probably be the time he'd tell us all about it. But no,
Are you aware of anything that the president has done at home or abroad that may have subjected him to or may subject him to extortion or blackmail?
I am not, no.
Okay. Are you aware of any videotapes that may be the subject of extortion or blackmail?
I've heard about these tapes for a long time. I've had many people contact me over the years. I have no reason to believe that that tape exists.
Oh, damn, he did it again, straying from the script. Instead of confirming the Russia conspiracy that has dominated and controlled American politics for more than 2 years, Michael Cohen just refuted it. What kind of witness is this guy anyway? This is getting very frustrating. Where do we get to the part where he blows the Russia case wide open and they lead Big Orange away in handcuffs and Hillary can be the president? Well, here's an idea. Let's just ask him directly. Did the Trump campaign collude with the Russian government during the 2016 election? Michael Cohen would know. He was there. By the way, it's almost a rhetorical question. Democrats have long been absolutely certain that it happened.
I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight.
Trump has the Kremlin clan surrounding him. There's more to be learned about it. I believe there's been collusion.
It's starting to smell more and more like collusion.
We saw cold, hard evidence of the Trump campaign, indeed the Trump family, eagerly intending to collude possibly with Russia.
These people. Plenty of evidence. Cold, hard evidence. Well, if anyone could provide that kind of evidence, it would be Michael Cohen. After all, he was Donald Trump. Is that really his name? No, it's Donald Trapanovich. He was Donald Trapanovich's personal attorney during the years that Trapanovich was accepting suitcases full of rubles in exchange for subverting American democracy. So what's the answer, Mr. Cohen?
Based on what you know, would Mr. Trump, or did he, lie about colluding and coordinating with the Russians at any point during the campaign?
So as I stated in my testimony, I wouldn't use the word colluding. Was there something odd about the back and forth praise with President Putin? Yes, but I'm not really sure that I can answer that question in terms of collusion.
Well, the balloon just deflated. Talk about a letdown. No meeting in Prague, no blackmail, no collusion, no Russia conspiracy at all. It was all a hoax. It was a much less interesting Loch Ness Monster. You've got to be feeling a little silly right now if you ever believed any of this. But wait, okay, we got one last idea. There is still a way Michael Cohen could send Donald Trump to prison even without Russia. What if Cohen could confirm that Trump once told him to lie to Congress? That would be obstruction of justice at the very least. It would certainly be a crime. BuzzFeed ran a story alleging that happened. Yes, BuzzFeed is a cat blog run by unhappy people in Brooklyn. But who knows? Maybe there's something there. Certainly cable news was convinced.
This would be certainly a bombshell information.
BuzzFeed's latest bombshell report. The White House is slamming a bombshell report by BuzzFeed.
The bombshell report from BuzzFeed.
If the BuzzFeed bombshell is true.
Bombshell report.
The latest bombshell from the cat blog. Our last hope to end this infernal presidency and return to the happy status quo of 2010. Our hopes are on you, Michael Cohen. Did it actually happen? The reveal, please.
You lied to those congressional committees, is that correct?
Previously?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
You stated that Trump never directed you to lie to Congress, is that correct?
That's correct.
No. 4 for 4. Michael Cohen strikes out. Game, set, match. The Trump presidency continues. The other team looks despondent. You can hear weeping from the press box. But wait, before we head to the parking lot and drive home, one final piece of business. What about all the lies you just heard? Not from Cohen, from the others. Blackmail, collusion, Russia, Russia, Russia! Are any of the liars who told those lies going to be punished for lying? Is anyone going to lose a job? Or a reputation? Or a contributor contract? Maybe just what happened to Carter Page. That might be enough. Is there any penalty for being relentlessly and recklessly dishonest for 2 solid years? For intentionally misleading the public in the service of a political agenda and a political party, the Democratic Party? Is a single person even going to concede what just happened, much less apologize for it? Of course not. It's Washington. I'll be promoted tomorrow. You watch.
All right, welcome back to HSP episode number 29. Thank you for joining us, dear listener. We are in segment 2. And we are going to run pretty quickly through this segment 2. I think we're going to try to keep this segment under 45 minutes so that we can stay on track for our 3 to 3.5 hour show. So our too long, dear listeners, don't get too triggered. That's the goal here.
And Team Long, dear listeners, thank you for your support on this one. We're probably going to go a little bit long today. We're going to try not to, but we probably will.
So. We need to call it at like 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. That was a slog last week. Thank you for hanging in there with us, dear listener. I mean, we truly mean it. I mean, we hope you enjoyed the show despite its its length. I mean, I thought it was fairly dense nonetheless. I don't think we
It was
wasted.
dense for sure, but yeah, we'll cut grab bag special out or something, whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
We're going to hard stop at 3.5 hours.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So let's jump into there were a couple of Democrats who announced candidacy for 2020 this week. Actually, I'm sorry. There was only one, but there's two who have all but put their chips in. So
yeah,
I'm quoting here from a BBC article. So there was a man, Jay Inslee. He's the Washington governor, and he has announced his candidacy in the long list of candidates, ever growing and still to continue growing list of Democratic candidates for the primaries. It's going to be so exciting, Russ. This is going to be so.
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
So meme worthy, so interesting. It's going to be really, really good. And I think one of the interesting things about the 2020 primaries, the 2020 Democrat primaries, is that you have such a wide array of ideas. And some of those people are very principled and have bad principles. We've already talked about that, but it's just going to be, it is really going to be interesting to see how these more pragmatic leftists deal with the principled Democratic socialists.
Oh yeah.
So,
I'm
quoting here from a BBC article. Washington State's Democratic Governor Jay Inslee has announced his 2020 bid for the U.S. presidential nomination, joining a lengthy list of contenders. Mr. Inslee, 68, will make climate change his number one issue, calling it, quote, the most urgent challenge of our time, end quote, in his first campaign video. He is the first governor to throw his hat into the ring, joining 12 other Democrats, including 6 senators. The two-term governor has been a fierce critic of President Donald Trump. Quote, I'm running for president because I am the only candidate who will make defeating climate change our nation's number one priority, end quote. And he continues, justice and inclusion. So no group is left to bear the cost of transition. So he's talking on climate change there. So on justice and inclusion, this is very similar to the Green New Deal. It's in the same vein where it's just this complete and total intersectionality, which is where that they just include everything. They include their whole agenda. The Green New Deal is an all-in bet. That is all their chips on the table.
Yep.
And they're going all in on Green New Deal. So even though he sort of throws this in at the end where it's like, oh yeah, justice and inclusion as well, he's doing the same thing here.
Yeah.
So I continue from the article. In addition to his environmental efforts, Mr. Inslee announced his other big proposals: raising the minimum wage, legalizing marijuana, protecting net neutrality, investing in infrastructure, and pushing for gun control. Quote, we've banned bump stocks and we're not done. Let's ban assault weapons and take weapons of war off our streets. So he is...
And it was actually Trump that banned bump stocks, by the way. So, let's give credit where credit is due. Although, I'd rather have bump stocks. I don't like any restrictions, Second Amendment. But it was Trump that did that. It was certainly not Democrats. Yeah. Go on. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's all good. Yeah. So, what we know here is that he is all but Democratic socialist. He's for... he is number one on defeating climate change. So don't think for a minute that he's not going to back Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal, Green Death Deal, Green New Death.
Sure. Yeah.
He'll be right on board with that. And that is just pure Democratic socialist. There is nothing about this guy that is not democratic socialist. And I think
agreed 100%. Yep.
I think this is going to end up being it's just so interesting. Like we have this spectrum of candidates on the left, and some of them are like, oh, I'm democratic socialist. Some of them are like, oh, no, I'm more of a middle of the road people. And then like you have your Elizabeth Warrens, and you've got your Jay Inslees who are like, and Kamala Harris's who are like, oh, no, I'm not democratic socialist. Or they're more just like, oh, I agree with the democratic socialists, but I'm just not going to call myself that. And that's what this is, because it's just a matter of prudence to them. They just don't think it's prudent right now to take on that label. They are wrong. They'll lose. He will lose to a Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders is going to take that label on. So he doesn't stand a chance against a Bernie Sanders. This is a non-starter candidacy.
Campaign fundraising. That's what it is. Trying to build up a war chest. That I suspect. And couple footnotes to this effect, dear listener. Like first of all, Cocaine Mitch is bringing up the Green New Death vote quickly. It might even happen next week. If it doesn't happen next week, it's certainly going to happen the week after. Chuck Schumer has already told his caucus, the Democrats, that they can vote present if they want to, right? So as to not identify with the Green New Death. They can just vote present. So like, dear listener, anytime you see a Democrat voting present on the Green New Death, they are for the Green New Death. Just know this going forward.
It's so, oh God, dude. You can vote. You can just be present. Man. I wish that, I wish when I was at work and I'm in a meeting and someone's like, hey, Luke, what do you think about this idea? And I'm just like, look, I'm here.
Present.
I showed up to work today. That's all you can ask of me.
Indeed, man.
God, dude, if only. Look,
I know it.
You should be happy that I am even here today, right now.
Right. Yes.
Don't even ask for my opinion on this.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
And another footnote. Since Luke mentioned Uncle Bernie. Real quick, I want to mention, dear listener, there was a thing that went down this week from Bernie Sanders. He had a town hall on CNN, and he kept getting asked all of these questions, right? Things like, what's going on with sexual harassment in your campaign? I guarantee you it will not happen again. It has been dealt with, and he gives anyways. So these questions just go on and on and on and on. And I'm reading from a Zero Hedge piece. It goes thus. All right. Question number one. Let me skip down in the article so as to not waste time, but there are 4 cases that they're dealing with here in this Zero Hedge article. Another question came from Tara Ebersole, a humble former biology professor, according to CNN. She's also the chair of the Baltimore County Democratic Party, according to her LinkedIn page. What's more, Ebersole's husband is a Maryland state delegate and was on Hillary Clinton's leadership council in 2016. Abina McAllister was labeled by CNN as a mother of 2, but failed to mention that she's also the Charles County Democratic Central Committee chair. Quote, Maryland voter Michelle Gregory is yet another, quote, everyday person who turns out to be politically active as the chair of the Lower Shore Progressive Caucus. There are several more examples, as nearly everyone who asked Bernie a question is linked to some type of Democratic activism. So again, dear listener, what they were doing is asking Bernie really hard questions. Here on this CNN town hall, they were painted oh so innocently as just a mother of 2, just a Maryland voter by CNN. Well, it seems like what was happening is that CNN planted these people intentionally to cut Bernie up pretty good because they're scared of him, dear listener. The Democrat blob establishment is terrified of the agenda he's bringing and the war chest that he has already raised right now. So I agree with Luke, a force like Bernie really is to be reckoned with. And this is being borne out in the proof of how the Democrat Party is trying to sabotage him right now. We need to take this very seriously. Oh, it's going to be so glorious.
Yeah, totally.
Man. They're going to be taking each other out right and left. I can't wait, man. I just can't wait.
It's going to be good. So I need I'm actually still quoting from this article. So they go on to talk about how he's going to position himself in this environmental, this landscape of environmentalism that Ocasio-Cortez has has raised. So I'm quoting here. So his answer is to fashion himself as the environmental candidate. With the Green New Deal getting traction among progressives, Mr. Inslee is touting his work addressing climate change in Washington state. He's launching his political bid at a solar panel factory whose success he attributes to his policies as governor. I love how the implicit statement there is that the success is not how valuable the technology is as such. It's his policies that made it valuable. Just think about that for a moment.
Right. Just like he did with the bump stock thing. You know what I mean? Same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it just says implicitly that it's basically worthless technology when compared to something like fossil fuels. So it took governmental intervention in the marketplace to make that technology viable. That's what that says implicitly. The article continues. If Mr. Inslee gets the attention of Democratic voters with his environmental pitch, he can then pivot to talking about his efforts to fight the Trump administration's immigration policies, expand healthcare in his state, raise the minimum wage, enact paid family medical leave, end capital punishment, and pardon Washington residents previously convicted of now legalized marijuana drug offenses. So this is really bizarre because they're talking about this in the context of him running for presidency, but then they couch this all in benefits for Washington voters. I don't.
Right.
I don't know if the author was too dense to understand that that's what they were doing, or if this is his explicit goal. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's probably just some sense of just being obtuse on behalf of the author. But yeah, I mean, it's just all democratic socialism. There's nothing more to it than this. This guy's a democratic socialist. He just doesn't want to call himself that because he thinks it's more prudent, it's more practical to just not carry that label. Which is why he's going to lose to Bernie, because you take somebody who's kind of like hiding from their label, and then you take somebody who's championing their label. You know, psychologically, people always tend to follow people who believe in themselves, have conviction, and display this sort of certainty in what they are about. And then it's the people who are hiding things that you're kind of like, I don't know about you, you know. But somebody like Bernie who isn't hiding from anything. Like, Bernie is certain about the things that he believes in. So somebody who doesn't know better looks at Bernie and goes, well, he must be right. Look how certain he is. And that's what's going to happen here with Inslee versus Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
So that's it, man.
Yeah, that writing is clearly on the wall, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. So that's the rundown on Jay Inslee, dear listener. There were two other happenings this week in terms of potential announcements. So we've got Governor Hickenlooper from Colorado. Now, this is really funny. Russ and I were talking about this on the pre-show call. So I'm quoting from an article from Washington Examiner here. Sources close to Hickenlooper said Thursday that Hickenlooper would be announcing a run sometime during the first week of March. Hickenlooper, 67, will be part of a large field of Democratic candidates and will start firmly in the second tier. I agree with that, by the way, behind names like Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Cory Booker, and Senator Elizabeth Warren. Former Vice President Joe Biden and former Representative Beto O'Rourke, aka Bob, have yet to announce decisions on whether to run. The article continues later. Hickenlooper is positioning himself as a pragmatic moderate who can work across the aisle. What a nice guy.
Yeah, of course.
And the article finishes later, or it doesn't finish here, but I'm just jumping forward here, and then I'll finish with the article, which goes on to say he and Republican, this is the funny part, he and Republican John Kasich are friends and have collaborated together in recent years, including working on a joint plan to stabilize Obamacare. Some have speculated the two moderate former governors might work together to form a unity ticket of sorts, although both have tried to tamp down those rumors, rather. Quoting Kasich here now. Hickenlooper, love him. The name is too long. Hickenlooper Kasich. You couldn't fit that on a bumper sticker. Okay. Dear listener, you could not write a better script for demonstrating what a right-wing cuck is. Literally, this is it. Okay, we have somebody who is on the right, who is supposed to be a Republican, who is supposed to be standing up for individual rights, for freedom, for liberty, for capitalism, who is collaborating with a pragmatic leftist in recent years to stabilize Obamacare. Let that sink in. This is the mainstream right. Good riddance. Say what you will about Trump. I will take Trump over that.
Damn right, brother. Damn right. Yeah, Kasich is kind of cuck, preeminent cuck up there with like Mitt Romney, several others, but like just ultra preeminent, super
turbo
hella
cucks.
Cuck,
Yeah, and when asked about it, it's not like, yeah, we disagree on policy. Yeah, we disagree philosophically on like what the nature of government should be. Well, that would be way beyond something I would expect anybody on the mainstream right to say. But no. His contention is that it wouldn't fit on a bumper sticker. These people are absolutely useless as politicians. And no, they are worse than useless. They are damaging. They are a liability to our country. Get these people out of the right-wing party. Just get them out. I'm so glad that like they are sort of seen as being leftists now. And I just the Kasich, these Mitt Romney types, the John McCain types, they are not people who are friends to liberty and freedom. Yes, I know John McCain is a veteran, a Vietnam POW. I'm not saying that he doesn't like this country. I'm saying he is not a friend to freedom, not a friend to capitalism, not a friend to liberty, not a friend to individual rights. And this behavior is so emblematic of that. And that's all I have on this. But actually, and there's one more candidate. Oh, Beto. Dude, did you want to cover Beto?
Oh, yes. No, go right ahead, man. Robert, son of Rourke. Or go right ahead, man. Yeah.
So, so I'm quoting here from a Zero Hedge article. According to the Dallas Morning News, Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke has finally made a decision about whether he will seek the 2020 nomination. And sources close to the congressman say that the decision is probably a yes. O'Rourke has been weighing, the article continues later, O'Rourke has been weighing how to, quote, best serve his country, end quote, and in parentheses, as well as his own political interests, since gaining national prominence during a Senate bid that nearly unseated Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Though Beto ultimately lost, he finished with a staggering fundraising haul of $80 million, which doesn't really matter anyways because his father-in-law is a billionaire. So,
that's right.
So, and the article just ends by saying that, with such a huge campaign war chest already well stocked, O'Rourke has little to lose. And they're totally right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Beto's getting a little ahead of himself. I think he should posture himself for a 2024 run or maybe even 2028. I just don't think that he has of course, neither did Obama, the same criteria, but the experience, that people would be confident in him. He's also, he won't stand up to Bernie either. He's basically a democratic socialist who won't adopt the name. He still wants to hide from it.
Yeah.
So I don't see him beating out Bernie. The only way, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, the only way these people could beat out a Bernie is if the American people aren't ready for democratic socialism and emphasis here yet. That's it. That's the only way that these people will get past Bernie is if the American public is not ready for Demstock yet. And I don't think they are. But if the American people are going to follow somebody who's principled, Bernie is their guy.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, man.
So what are your thoughts on all that, man?
Well, I just cannot wait for the primaries, man. I really can't wait. The Democrat primaries are going to be an absolute hoot. We do expect that Joe Biden is going to throw his hat in the ring here pretty soon. I personally expect that Michelle Obama will also throw her hat in the ring here pretty soon. I think she's just kind of biding her time. You notice how quiet the Obamas are right now, dear listener. It's really suspicious, if you ask me. These will be the front runners. You know what I mean? I don't really have I guess my final thought is this, Luke. I don't have a pick yet for who I think it's going to be. We're just going to have to see some debates and see, some rhetoric going forward. There will be some mistakes made by Democrats in this campaign season. We'll see who makes them and how severe they are, and there's going to be a lot of dirt to come out too. Oh, I can't wait, man. I just can't wait. But I mean, the one thing I don't know, man, I just can't believe Robert, son of Rourke, Bob. I just cannot believe him, man. There's just something so disingenuous.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, his statement, dear listener. Yeah. His statement was like this. It was like, running, announcing, but not announcing, not running. And it was this tweet he put out, I guess, where it's like, Amy and I have decided how we can best serve our country. I look forward to telling you in the next couple of days. It's like, shut up, you scumbag.
You'll be excited to hear that we've decided how best to serve our country.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. And so like, I don't know. I understand what he's trying to do, like what he does with his skateboard and how he makes these coy little announcements. I understand he's trying to build up hype. Okay. I totally get it. I think that eventually that kind of crap is going to backfire on him in a big way, right? From hard chargers like Bernie, who don't play games like that. Bernie just comes out and says, I'm running for president. We're going to have a revolution. And he just says it right there out in the open, unlike this, coy little jerk that Bob, son of Rourke is.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that it's not, I just don't think it resonates. It smacks of this, like, this very cheesy salesman pitch where it's like,
yes,
how
it does.
Like, I mean, I said it just now, but it's like this, oh, you'll be excited to hear that I have something very valuable to you. Do you have 20 minutes next week to have a conversation?
Right.
It's like
right. That's exactly it.
Let
me
think.
Well said.
No, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, but this is totally going to be epic. This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, dear listener, I think that by the time this really gets underway, Russ and I will probably be live streaming on YouTube, and then you can join us.
Absolutely. I mean, we're definitely going to stream some Trump rallies. That's what Luke and I did in the 2016 campaign season, man. We would just sit there and watch Trump rallies and drink beer and whiskey and stuff, No reason to not do it again just because Luke's in Germany and I'm in Texas. We're still going to do it, So, come along, hang out with us. Yeah. Yep.
All right, man. We should move on to CPAC. So,
oh yeah,
the Conservative Political Action Committee's annual conference was this week, and Michelle Malkin, she kind of seemed like she disappeared a little bit from the political landscape in the last few years. Because I know, back in 2015, she was super prolific, and all the years prior, and then it seems like she kind of has disappeared to the background as of recently. But man, she delivered a just fire speech at CPAC this week. And I mean, I don't know that I agree with all of it, but it's worth mentioning here because it's just been all over the media this week. So I'm quoting here from a Breitbart piece. So Malkin's Friday address went after members of both political parties and those who seek to, quote, marginalize and criminalize mainstream conservatives, anti-jihad groups, and immigration hawks as, quote, hate groups and push out the public square like the Color of Change and the Southern Poverty Law Center, end quote. She also named, or no, I'm sorry, we'll get to that at the very, very end. So during the speech, she also referenced, like, you know, the fact that 1 million people are given legal permanent resident status in America each year. That's predicted to increase to 10 million green card holders by 2025. She goes on to talk about the diversity visa lottery, which brought another nearly 500,000 immigrants from 2008 to 2017. She's quoted as saying here that tens of thousands are pouring in from terrorism breeding grounds through the lottery, unvetted, unmonitored, and unassimilated. And then I'm just actually reading from the article now. In addition, these lottery winners have brought in, quote, spouses and unmarried children under 21 through train migration. So this is, when we talk about immigration, these are the things that really bother me. I mean, I don't really care too much about people coming in to better their lives and work. I think that that's actually virtuous, but not unvetted, unmonitored, and it takes time. I don't think that assimilation is where you should put this, because assimilation takes time. But unvetted and unvetted, like, to me, that's it. Like, you have to vet people. If you aren't doing that, you do not have a secure border to your country. And like, yes, sir, we can disagree on immigration policy all day, but immigration laws, whatever you want to call it, immigration laws, immigration policy, whatever. I think there should be laws and not policy, but you know, it doesn't matter. Like, if you are not vetting the people coming into your country, who cares what we're even talking about? Again, this is like going back to something like environmentalism. I'm not going to argue about the minutia of a detail about how much the oceans have risen in the last 10 years. If you disagree with fossil fuel technology as such, it's the same thing. I'm not going to argue over the minutia of how many immigrants we should let in and where we should let them in from. If you disagree with having secure borders as such, it's the same thing. And this is what she's getting at here. So I'll close this piece out by moving on a couple paragraphs, quoting Michelle Malkin here. Congress has repeatedly mandated a nationwide visa entry-exit system to track legal short-term visa holders, but one has yet to be built, even in the wake of 9/11 terrorist attacks, which were perpetrated in part by several illegal alien visa overstayers, said Malkin. Quote, E-Verify has been stalled. Sanctuary cities metastasize. Both parties are to blame. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, the Bush family, Mitt Romney, and get ready for it, dear listener, the ghost of John McCain, she charged.
Dang. Dang.
Yeah, so she was quiet for a couple years, and she just put a firm end to that.
Yeah. I see her here and there on, doing bits on Fox News and stuff. She still writes, I see her articles pop up here and there. But man, dear listener, I was telling Luke just before the show. Now listen, I'm not talking trash about Michelle Malkin. I love her to death, but man, that woman scares the ever living crap out of me. I'm not kidding. Every time I see her on TV, it is like somebody just walked over my grave. I get a chill. Oh, God, there's Michelle Malkin. I mean, I love her to death, and I agree with just about everything she says, but man, she is a force. I mean, a absolute force to be reckoned with. And man, she got the thunderous applause after calling out all the cucks in the Republican Party, boy. I mean, she epic speech.
Like, what you're describing, Russ, is the state of somebody who has convictions. Somebody who actually has convictions about what they think. They're not like, I think that we should look at immigration. It's like, no, she has convictions. She knows what she wants. Yeah. She knows she it's not a belief. She's like, this is factually correct. And I'm going to push that.
Yep.
And that is why she comes off the way she does. And same with like Ann Coulter.
Yeah.
You know, these are not Kasich that we're dealing with, you know? And, you know, she's not talking about like how long is too long when we're discussing a name on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
You know, they are like, this is what I think. That is a conviction, and it is upon you to tell me that I'm wrong.
Yep.
That's why she comes off that way. Have convictions, dear listener, not beliefs.
Yeah. That's right. That's right, Maine. Yeah.
Unless you have anything else to add, I would suggest we move on to the summit so we can try and hit our heartbreak goal of 2 hours and 45.
Yeah, let's do it, man. So dear listener, you might have missed it this week, but there was the North Korea summit that happened in Hanoi, Vietnam between the president and Kim Jong-un. Some highlights of the ceremony or of the summit were that, Trump walked in the end, right? And I think everybody probably knows this now. He mentioned 2 data points that he specifically said at the press conference that Jim Acosta was bitching about in the clip that we played earlier. He mentioned that North Korea did not want to completely denuclearize, that they weren't ready to do it yet, and that nonetheless they were wanting all of their economic sanctions by the U.S. removed, right? Well, at that point in time, Trump just stood up and was like, okay, no, lunch is canceled. I got CPAC to get to later, boys, and packed up and had a press conference and jumped on Air Force One, and that was that. Just like Ronald Reagan did to Gorbachev in Reykjavik, Iceland back in, when was that, 1984-ish, something like that, just totally walked, you know what I mean, away from the summit. Now, I think personally, this was the right thing to do, okay? Now, I'm going to detail some things for you here, dear listener, about why I think this is, but the first thing I want to mention, right? So it was real strange, right? Kim Jong-un didn't fly to Hanoi, Vietnam. He took this train, like a 3-day-long train ride, okay? And, a lot of people in the conservative media are making the point about, like, they're too poor to fly. They had to ask China to, like, lend him a plane to fly him to the last summit in Singapore. I don't think that's what's really going on here, dear listener. I think that it was about family optics because his grandfather had made that same train ride before. His father had made that same train ride before, so I think it was about family tradition. I think he kind of wanted to just kick it on a train for a while, which train rides are awesome, man.
I love riding trains.
I can't fault him for that. Yeah, man, it's awesome, But there is one funny thing that happened. They brought the whole train to a stop somewhere in China because Kim Jong-un needed a cigarette, right? And you could see it in his face, man, that Nick Fitton face, man. He needed a cigarette right then, right? So he jumps off the train, starts smoking a cigarette. There's a photographer nearby, snaps all kind of pictures of it. And his sister, the one that everybody was lauding so much during the Olympics, breaks out a crystal ashtray and sits there and holds it for him to ash into so that they don't drop soil on the ground of China, okay? Now, this is going to be really important right here, dear listener. It's funny as hell. Don't get me wrong. Watching Kim Jong-un smoke so hungrily was really funny to see, right? But now keep in mind, though, the extreme measures taken to not put cigarette ash on Chinese soil. I mean, yes, it's it's a sign of respect to the Chinese. It is also a sign of absolute contrition to China. And this is going to be important going forward, okay? So what really is going on here, dear listener? I want to read from another conservative treehouse piece once again because Sundance has been knocking it out of the park. I'm going to take a piece from the lead that dropped on the 24th. It goes thus. We are living in historic times. It was not coincidental that North Korea's chairman Kim Jong-un took the long train out of the DPRK yesterday while VSTR Robert Lighthizer and Chinese Vice Premier Liu He were still engaged in extended U.S.-China trade negotiations. Quite simply, Kim's early exit from Pyongyang meant that Chairman Xi's geopolitical leverage was diminished. Okay? I think that might be true, right? Now, there's another thing that Sundance detailed this week, and it's in a piece that he called the Trump Doctrine. And I want to read some pieces of it to you because it's really fascinating. And I really hadn't thought about it in exactly these terms, although we all kind of thought about it in these terms, but we couldn't really put it together about what was going on. I'm going to take the piece from the lead. It goes thus. President Trump has been executing a foreign policy, a clear doctrine of sorts, where the national security is achieved by leveraging U.S. economic power. It is a fundamental shift in approaching both allies and adversaries, summarized within the oft-repeated phrase, economic security is national security. The Trump doctrine of using economics to achieve national security objectives is a fundamental paradigm shift. Modern U.S. history provides no easy reference. He has a quote from the president, "Peace is the prize." That's what Donald Trump said. It's a great quote. The nature of the Trump foreign policy doctrine, as it has become visible, is to hold manipulative influence agents accountable for regional impacts and simultaneously work to stop any corrupted influence from repressing free expression of national values held by the subservient, disempowered people within the nation being influenced. There have been clear examples of this doctrine at work. When President Trump first visited the Middle East, he confronted the international audience with a message about dealing with extremist influence agents. President Trump simply said, "Drive them out." Toward that end, as Qatar was identified, Qatar, I say Qatar, but most people say it Qatar. Toward that end, as Qatar was identified as a financier of extremist ideology, President Trump placed the goal of confrontation upon the Gulf Cooperation Council, not the U.S. The U.S. role was clearly outlined as supporting the confrontation. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Egypt, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates need to confront the toxic regional influence. The U.S. would support their objective. That's what happened. Another example. To confront the extremism creating the turmoil in Afghanistan, President Trump placed the burden of bringing the Taliban to the table of governance upon primary influence agent Pakistan. Here again, with U.S. support, Pakistan is the leading influence agent over the Taliban in Afghanistan. The Trump administration correctly established the responsibility and gives clear expectations for U.S. support. Now, dear listener, let's talk about this in terms of what's really going on here in terms of negotiations with North Korea. North Korea is 100% a client state of the Chinese. 90% of the food they consume comes from China. The scant goods that they have in North Korea, 90% of those also come from China. No China, no North Korea. This summit is just as much about China as it is about North Korea. And I believe that this may be why the president walked, right? Because there are a couple things going on here. The left is all howling about, he's coming back to Washington. He failed. Yeah, art of the fail. Which is absurd on its face because you should be supporting the president in foreign policy matters. I mean, come on, leftists, get on page here, right? What Trump does that is good for the United States is good for you. And for you to counter-signal the president on this is just disgusting, man. But they did it right on cue. I mean, first they were talking about they didn't want Trump to sign any type of deal with Pyongyang because Pyongyang was, it's giving too many concessions is what the leftists keep saying. Then Trump doesn't sign a deal with him, gets up and walks. They're all mad about that, right? He can't do anything right in the leftist mainstream media's eyes at all. He can't sign a deal. That would be wrong. He can't walk from a deal. That also was wrong, right? But I think I'm going to cite Gordon Chang here on this, dear listener, and he was on the Laura Ingraham show on Thursday night. He made a really fascinating point. Now, Gordon Chang, in my opinion, is the preeminent expert on Chinese-U.S. relations right now, right? He also happens to be, he is Chinese, but he's very anti the state of China. He thinks that we need to take it to him in these trade negotiations. I happen to agree with him. We need to keep them from stealing our intellectual property at the very least. Why are we even talking about this in terms of making a trade deal? This is common sense stuff. Stop stealing our shit, bro. And this is very simple to understand, really. You know what I mean? And it's done this way, dear listener. In order for a U.S. company to operate within China, they have to surrender all of their intellectual property and trade secrets to the government of China. That's how they steal our IP, not to mention by hacking into our governments, into our militaries, all over the place. China is the number one hacker in the world by far, not Russian bot farms, not in the slightest, okay? So I think what was going on here, and again, to go back to Chang, right? Trump sent a clear signal to China. Look, I'm willing to walk away from any deal. We're in trade negotiations right now. If you don't come correct, I'm going to walk away, right? This would be bad for China because China is sucking it up right now in terms of recession, dear listener. These trade tariffs that we have placed on China right now are really hurting their economy, right? Because it makes it harder for Americans to buy Chinese goods, right? They don't want to pay. Now, all of a sudden, Chinese goods aren't as cheap as they used to be. They're on parity with American-made goods, so they're selling less of them. This is dramatically affecting their economy, and they're starting to really take it in the shorts on this one, and they know that they need the United States to buy their stuff in order for their economy to survive, right? So according to Gordon Chang, Trump just advertised that he will walk from the deal at any moment. This would be horrible for China, right? Now, I think there's something else going on here at play. Refer back to Sundance's piece, which I just read, dear listener. I think that there is some holding China accountable for North Korea's actions going on here right now, right? I believe Gordon Chang is right. Trump walked to threaten China in terms of these trade negotiations. I think that's correct. I think Trump also, in the middle of these negotiations, smelled a rat between North Korea and China, right? Because like right off the bat, as soon as Trump walked, China came out with an official statement saying, okay, listen, North Korea and the United States really need to meet halfway on their demands, right? Look at this. No. What you got to do is you got to take down your nukes, bro. You got to stop shooting missiles into, over Japan. You got to stop shooting missiles out into the South China Sea. You got to stop this craziness, right? That has to stop. After that, we are going to economically benefit your country. The president's been saying it all week, right? Holding that carrot over his head. Now, I think that Trump smelled something here, like China pimped their intentions right then and there, dear listener. They are advising North Korea to take the farm from the United States, right? Which is exactly what Kim did. He was like, yeah, we're not ready to denuclearize. We want you to drop all our tariffs. China advertises this in terms of they need to meet halfway on their demands of one another. So I think Trump kind of got hit to this, right? In the middle of the negotiations. And once Kim said those demands, Trump is like, that's China right there. That's China pulling his strings. I'm getting out of here. That's it. No deal. I think he's also made a very smart move in terms of at this point in time, for negotiations to continue, Kim now has to go back to Trump like he did this time when he said, we are wanting to meet it with the United States again. We're willing to meet them anytime, anywhere. Trump just walked rather harshly, if I may say. Now Kim is going to have to come to Trump in order to deal to boost his own economy up and get the sanctions relieved and get back on the world stage, or get on the world stage for the first time in terms of an economy and in order to make his country prosperous, to prosper his people, right? So Trump has hella leverage in this situation right now by walking, dear listener. Don't listen to these leftists about, failed, art of the fail, going back to the United States with nothing, where the Cohen questions still wait for him, just like they did, like they have since the hearing last week. They're still here waiting on him, no ace in his pocket. No, dear listener. He pulled a baller move in doing this. And I think also what needs to be happening right now is leftists need to be thanking him for looking out for the United States' best interest regarding China. Okay. What do I expect going forward? Okay. Now, I don't think that Trump is going to do something like, walk away from the Chinese economic negotiations. I don't think that's going to happen. Right. But I think what the United States government is going to start doing is start pointing out specific incidents going forward over the next few weeks where they're like, okay, China violated our sanctions against North Korea by doing this, by sending them coal, by sending them, tofu, soybeans, whatever. You know what I mean? China violated these sanctions this way, right? So Trump is going to start dialing up the pressure on the Chinese, is what I'm saying, dear listener. Now, he's not going to all of a sudden just come out and say deals off. He's going to do it more subtly. So I think going forward, look for pressure on China to start ratcheting up in subliminal language in terms of China is breaking international law in this respect. China is violating international sanctions in this respect, forcing China's hand to get on board with the United States in terms of this trade deal. Then I think you will see Kim Jong-un come back to the United States, come back to the president of the United States within a year. All right. I think it's going to be right about election season when Kim Jong-un comes back. And I believe that the denuclearization treaty will be signed in the third summit. Just a gut feeling. What do you think about
I think that you're probably pretty much right with that. I think that's a fair analysis.
Yeah.
I think that's correct. And I think that the timeline of 1 year is probably, if anything, I think it's a little long. I would expect it actually to happen even sooner, but we'll see.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. You know what? I didn't even really think about that, Luke. I think you're probably spot on about that. Like a year may be a little bit long. That may be a little bit long. So
I mean, and there's unpredictable elements here. You don't know how much Trump is going to turn the screws in that time. I mean, how Trump deals with this will really determine that timeline.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, sir.
Speaking of timelines, you want to hit break and go to segment 3?
Yeah, let's do it. Dear listener, we've got some really special audio to play for you for the second break today. This just happened at CPAC. Trump got back from Hanoi, Vietnam, and went directly to CPAC. Well, actually, he stopped off and visited some soldiers in Alaska first at, I can't remember the name of the base that's up there, but it was very cool of him to do that. Stopped and refueled, hung out with some soldiers, went directly to CPAC right after that. And he apparently delivered a barn burner of a speech today, dear listener, and we cannot wait to hear it. He actually dropped, he cursed in the speech. He said that they're trying to destroy him with bullshit. And I mean, the Twitter sphere just started blowing up as soon as he came on. It's still the top story on Zero Hedge as I look at it right now. The things that he's saying in this speech, we can't wait to hear it. We already know it's good. So we hope you enjoy it just as much as we do, dear listener. We're going to play about 10 minutes of it. I'm pretty close to the beginning of when he first walked out to the Trump rally that is known as CPAC. So give us about 10 minutes of real-time audio here and enjoy our president, dear listener. We'll be back at you before you know it.
Don't use certain words, please. I say, but the audience wanted me to do it. She said, don't do it. And the problem is, if I do that, they won't put the little preamble that we just went through. They'll just use the word, and they'll say, isn't that terrible? So I won't use it. I've learned, because with the fake news, if you tell a joke, if you're sarcastic, if you're having fun with the audience, if you're on live television with millions of people and 25,000 people in an arena, and if you say something like, Russia, please, if you can, get us Hillary Clinton's emails. Please, Russia, please. Please get us the emails, please. So everybody's having a good time. I'm laughing. We're all having fun. And then that fake CNN and others say, he asked Russia to go get the emails. Horrible. I mean, I saw it like 2 weeks ago. I'm watching, and they're talking about one of the points. He asked Russia for the emails. These people are sick, and I'm telling you, they know the game. They know the game, and they play it dirty, dirtier than anybody's ever played the game. Dirtier than it's ever been played. But the thing that we've done is very special, because on trade, and because of tariffs, and I know there are people in the Republican Party and people, really even conservatives, good conservatives, they don't like tariffs. I'm not liking or not liking. The minimum, the greatest negotiating tool in the history of our country. Do you think China would be sending their top representatives over? Right now, China's paying 25% tariff on $50 billion worth of technology goods. I was then going to charge them 25% on $200 billion. Not like 200 million, that's a lot. This is 200 with a B, billion. 200 billion. So, but I was nice because we're having a very strong negotiation, which if it weren't for tariffs, and I tell this to President Xi, this is nothing to hide. I would never be talking like this because in theory, it could hurt your negotiating position, but in my case, it can't. Because it's true. I was nice, and I left it at 10% on 200 billion, and here's the beauty. We've lost so much money with China, $500 billion a year, and on trade is such a disaster, it's $507 billion a year. China, just one country. We lose with everybody, almost. But China's one country, $507 billion for many years. So the beauty is this. I have $250 billion more to put tariffs on. The numbers are staggering. Billions of dollars right now are pouring into our treasury. And for those of you that haven't done the research, if you look, of the 25%, our country, as it's turned out, because it's now been on there for a long while, and I'm in no rush because I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. Of the 25 points, we've paid for 4 points, and China's paid for 21 points. Okay, 21. That's what the numbers are. It's very simple. You know, everyone said, oh, it's a tax on our... It's not really. And what China and other countries do sometimes is they will subsidize it. So the tax really is incredible. But what it is beyond everything else, I can negotiate. But then you have senators and a few congressmen, but not Mark Meadows. Where's the great Mark Meadows? He's here something. Man, has he been good? Mark and Jim Jordan, and I want to name every one of those couple of hundred people, because we do have a lot. I want to name every damn one of them. They have been incredible. They've been fighting, and I just see Mark in the audience. They've been fighting with Deb, much more important. His wife is incredible. What an asset. He would be nowhere without her. Right? But they fight so hard on this witch hunt, this phony deal that they put together, this phony thing that now looks like it's dying, so they don't have anything with Russia. There's no collusion. So now they go and morph into, let's inspect every deal he's ever done. We're going to go into his finances. We're going to check his deals. We're going to check. These people are sick. They're sick. I saw a little shifty Schiff yesterday. No, it's the first time. He went into a meeting and he said, we're going to look into his finance. I said, where did that come from? He always talked about Russia. Collusion with Russia. The collusion delusion. So now we're waiting for a report, and we'll find out whether or not and who we're dealing with. We're waiting for a report by people that weren't elected. Think of this. We had the greatest election. In all fairness, I used to hear Andrew Jackson. This was now greater than the election of Andrew Jackson. People say that. No, people say it. I'm not saying it. Right? This was the equivalent or greater. You know, they used to go to Ronald Reagan when I first started. This is Ronald Reagan. Then we started really doing well, and they were coming from everywhere to vote. Those red hats and white ones. The key isn't the color. The key is what it says. Make America great again. That's what it says. Right? Right? But we had the greatest of all time. Now we have people that lost. And unfortunately, you put the wrong people in a couple of positions, and they leave people for a long time that shouldn't be there. And all of a sudden, they're trying to take you out with bullshit, okay? With bullshit. Now, Robert Mueller never received a vote, and neither did the person that appointed him. And as you know, the Attorney General says, I'm going to recuse myself. I'm going to recuse. And I said, why the hell didn't he tell me that before I put him in? How do you recuse yourself? But the person that appointed Robert Mueller never received a vote. Robert Mueller put 13 of the angriest Democrats in the history of our country on the commission. Now, how do you do that? These are angry, angry people. You take a look at them. One of them was involved with the Hillary Clinton Foundation running it. Another one has perhaps the worst reputation of any human being I've ever seen. All killers. In fact, it would have been actually better for them if they put half and half, and Mueller can do whatever he wants anyway, which he'll probably do. But we have conflicts. I had a nasty business transaction with Robert Mueller a number of years ago. I said, why isn't that mentioned? He wanted the job as FBI director. I mean, these are things that are out there. They know it. Why isn't that, and I didn't give it to him, why isn't that mentioned? Jim Comey, Lion James Comey, is his best friend. James Comey is his best friend. And those are a few of the conflicts. Other than that, it's wonderful. So everybody's waiting. I thought of it this morning, Mark, and I heard you made an incredible speech and statement today, Mark Levin. I heard it was incredible. And I was on the way, but I'll see it later. I guarantee I'll be watching it later. I have one of the great inventions in history. It's called TiVo. I think it's actually better than television, because television's practically useless without TiVo, right? But I'll be watching it later, Mark. But people that got no votes, but I heard this morning, President Trump is waiting for the Mueller report. I said, wait a minute, let me get this straight. So the Attorney General recuses himself, and I don't fire him. No obstruction. That's the other thing. If you use your rights, if you use your power, if you use Article 2, it's called obstruction, but only for Trump, for nobody else. So the Attorney General is weak and ineffective, and he doesn't do what he should have done. Somebody that never got a vote writes a powerful letter, horrible, about Comey. Every single Democrat said Comey should be fired, or worse if possible. Every Republican said everybody, in fact, when I fired Comey, I said, First Lady, I said, Melania, I'm doing something today. I'm doing it because it really has to be done. He's bad. He's a bad guy. That's been proven now with all of the emails and the text. I'm doing something that has to be done. But the good news? It's going to be bipartisan. It's going to be so popular. It's going to be bipartisan. Every Democrat hates him. Every Republican hates him. He did a horrible job at the FBI. Speak to the real agents, the real people, because the people in the FBI are incredible people, not the sleaze on top. And I said to the First Lady, I said, but the good news? The good news is that this is going to be so bipartisan, everyone's going to love it. So we fire Comey, and Schumer, who called for his resignation many times, Podesta, I believe that day, because he still hasn't gotten over getting his ass kicked, okay? I believe that day.
Welcome back to Hardly Strictly Politics, episode number 29, edging 29. Up to episode 30.
29 in the house.
Russ, we never decided. Are we going to burn it down in 30? What's the deal?
Yeah, man. I think a proper burner is in order, man. Yeah, we're going to burn it down. Let's do it. Yeah.
I mean, we were going to do it for 25, but we never did. We overshot our professionals.
Neither one of us were just really feeling it. Yeah. But man, I think it's about time. It's been a while. It's been a good long while, man. A few months,
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since we've thrown all semblance of professionalism out the window.
Indeed. Indeed, it has been. And I don't know, maybe we can get some guests lined up, something like that. We'll look into it, dear listener. We'll do something special for 30. Yeah, and man, Luke, we're just stacking up the numbers now, man. This is our last 20 episode, man. I can't believe it, man. We're not 20 somethings anymore, man. We're fixing to be 30 somethings, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. It's like it seems like just yesterday we were on episode 5.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
So
It sure does.
But man, I have to say, I had no idea that Trump was listening to our show.
Oh, but we did. We knew.
I'm being facetious. Of course he's listening to our show.
Of course. Yep. Yeah, we've got some pretty loyal dear listeners in the house in DC, dear listener at large. I mean, like they we may know some. We're certain the president listens to HSP, but I mean, man, did you hear the speech that we just played, dear listener? He straight up quoted HSP boys in that speech just now, talking about the Andrew Jackson thing. You heard me? We
literally just covered that it's so bizarre.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Dude, I saw us. I think it was on Poll. I saw somebody calling Bernie. I saw somebody calling him Bernie Sandals.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I swear to God, dude.
Oh my
I was
God.
like, no. Yeah, I was like, no way. I was like, that's not a coincidence.
Yeah, no, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah. We're in good company, dear listener. Thank you so much, man. The ideas are getting out there. Yeah, it's happening. It's happening.
I think it was actually a Trump general thread, and it was like Bernie Sandals edition.
Dang. Oh man, you're kidding me. That was the title of the thread.
Yes.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah, it was the title of the thread. It caught my eye. I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, just a Freudian slip turns into a thread on Poll, man. Can you believe it? Unbelievable, man. So,
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It is. So you're in good company, dear listener. Thank you for being in the saddle with us. We're having a blast, and the messages are getting out there in the way that we want, in the exact right way. It's perfect. Oh, it's just perfect. Glorious in our eyes.
Yeah, let's move into grab bag special, dude. So, dear listener,
let's do it.
we've got a double header for you.
Yeah, we do. First double header, man.
Yeah. So, old Bernie Sandals did his kickoff rally in Brooklyn just today, just a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna hit that. We're gonna hit two drops out of that, and then there is another video. So Alex Jones went on the Joe Rogan show, which, by the way, okay, so Team Long, dear listener. wait, hold on. Team Long is the dear listeners who appreciate the long?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Team Short, dear listeners. Okay, Joe Rogan is like one of, if not the most listened to podcaster. Like he's for sure top 5, if not the most listened to. Like they just put out an almost 5-hour show.
Yeah.
And all of his shows are around 3 hours. So it's like 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
So like this is an acceptable format. Team Short.
Yes.
I'll just say that. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a validated, tried and true format.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
So anyway, Alex Jones went on the Joe Rogan show, and apparently I haven't watched it, but we've gotten feedback from multiple individuals talking about how meme-worthy, how entertaining it was. So we're gonna I don't know what to expect, Russ. I don't know if that's going to be sort of like, what was it last week that was the dud, or was it the week before?
Week before was
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Dennis Prager.
Yeah, Bernie will be good. I'm hoping Joe Rogan show will be entertaining and funny. And
I hope so too. There, our mutual buddy in San Francisco, a dear listener at large, sent this to Nate in our mutual text thread last night, and he was like, "Dude, Joe Rogan with Alex Jones, it's got aliens, it's got Bohemian Grove, it's got everything, man." So I think it's going to be good,
dude. Yeah, one of our other dear listeners, he sent this to me over WhatsApp. He goes, Rogan / Alex Jones / Eddie Bravo may have been the single greatest piece of entertainment I have ever witnessed. Like 5 hours long, but holy crap, I had to stop listening to the podcast just so I could go watch it on YouTube instead once Bravo joined in. Pure gold.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, we got to do this for us.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's get it underway, man.
All right, let's do it. All right, so I've got the Bernie Sanders rally queued up right now. I would imagine there's some dead air at the beginning. It is 2 hours and 29 minutes. You should see you should see the picture that is up on this rally, dear listener. It's just Uncle Bernie, sitting there waving at this packed throng of waving to the throng packed stadium. It's pretty funny on its face. But like Luke, I suggest we kind of jump into the middle of this. What do you think about this one, man?
Yeah, because when I saw the live feed, it was like, yeah, for sure it was like an hour and 40, and he was like in the midst of it.
Yeah,
so,
I'm hovering over 1 hour 40 minutes and 51 seconds, and he is in it, and everybody's waving their stupid ass Bernie signs and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, yeah, you're right.
Let me see. Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can do some hovering, and we can determine like when he actually comes on. No.
All right.
Wait. Here we go.
Right about 1:25:33, it looks like to me. Right about then.
No, 1:35. He's still not.
Dang. Oh yeah, you're right. My bad. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, he doesn't come on until 1:45.
Okay.
Actually, 1:48.
Confirmed. That is correct. They finally went from the long shot to a closer shot. Yeah, that is confirmed.
I'll tell you what, why don't we skip the intro type stuff and go to more like minute 1 hour 55.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds really good. So I'm at 1:54:54, hovering right above it. Now, dear listener, I do want to say, all right, I just proofed a little bit of this audio, and they absolutely blew it at the rally itself. Bernie's voice is like really overmodulated. They've got the microphone up too loud, in other words, and he really sounds like garbage. It's not the HSP boys. We do our production proper. We might clip every now and then, but not that often. But this entire audio bit that you're going to listen to now is clipped, and it sounds pretty bad. And so sorry about that. But I'm sure that that makes it even more grab bag special worthy, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, yeah. We haven't even listened to any of it. We're already grab bag specialing it.
Yeah, absolutely correct. All right, man. All right, you ready to roll this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, dear listener, 1:54:54 coming at you right here.
In this country, having more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth. No, we will no longer stand idly by and allow 3 families in this country to own more wealth than the bottom half of the American people. And while these families become richer, over 20% of our children live in poverty. Veterans sleep out on the streets, and senior citizens cannot afford their prescription drugs. We're here to tell the 1% that we will no longer tolerate 46% of all new income going to the very richest people in this country, while millions of Americans are out working 2 or 3 jobs just to survive and pay the bills.
All right, man, this has got me triggered right here. How are you feeling? I'm triggered.
Oh, I'm triggered. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, dear listener, don't forget, as Luke and I have detailed exhaustively in these hallowed halls, Bernie owns 3 houses in Vermont. He owns a red Audi sports car, right? Now he's going to sit here and virtue signal about wealth inequality. Why does this wealth inequality exist? Why do our veterans sleep on the streets? Because of socialist policies in the cities in which they're enacted. That's where you see homeless veterans sleeping on streets, right? You don't see this so much in Texas. You see it rampantly in San Francisco, right? The hypocrisy is just incredible, man. And also, dear listener, I want to point out that there are a lot of people at this rally, right? I mean, Bernie definitely learned something from Trump in the election season of 2016. And but I want to point out a crucial difference here. He's reading from a script. He's not going off the cuff like our president does. He's reading from a script, and this will become a liability, I promise you.
Yeah. There's something very insidious that he's talking about, which is that when he says, you know, Russ, when you talked about how he's contradictory in nature, when he's talking about this inequality and there's veterans on the streets and, you know, poor children and so on and so forth, yet he has X, Y, and Z. What's really, really insidious about this is not that he's contradictory. It's that he has done absolutely nothing to earn any of that.
For sure. For sure.
These people he is criticizing, these are business people. These are people producing value. These are people going out there and applying their mind and their body to produce value and trade in the marketplace on a voluntary basis, presumably.
Yep.
And in as much as they do that, they create value. Bernie Sanders is not that. Bernie Sanders is getting free money from people and living off.
That's right. That's right, Maine. That's right.
So it's way worse than contradictory.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, man. I mean, as we've detailed previously, dear listener, this son of a bitch never held a job until he was elected to his first political office when he was about 40 years old, right? He's like straight up Karl Marx. He's a deadbeat. He never worked until he held political office in his early 40s. Stop and think about that, dear listener. He never held a job. How the hell did he stay alive, right? Did this make him empathetic with poor people, these, you know, poor huddled masses with whom he so connects? No, it didn't. It didn't. He doesn't connect with them any more than anybody does on the left, right? He wants them to keep giving me your money. I'm going to write a book now. Please go buy my book. That's what he's doing right there. Please keep contributing to my campaign so we can have a revolution, right? That's that. The hypocrisy and deadbeatness of it, man. I mean, yeah. Again, dear listener, he never held a job. He never mowed lawns when he was a kid. He never opened a lemonade stand when he was a kid. He never did anything. Again, the comparison to Karl Marx is just too appropriate. Isn't it, though?
We should jump to bit number 2, drop number 2.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go in a bit to 2 hours 15.
2 hours 15. Yeah, okay, yeah. He's going to be in the home stretch here, man. This is a good call. I'm at 2 hours, 15 minutes, and 2 seconds. You feel good about that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, coming at you.
And began my higher education right here on this campus. I should also mention that my brother Larry graduated from Brooklyn College.
I'm going to turn it up just a little bit, dear listener. I'm a little bit low.
I did not come from a family that taught me to build a corporate empire through housing discrimination. I protested housing discrimination.
Okay, let me interrupt here, dear listener. What's going on is they just fixed his audio in the rally, right? So he's registering a lot more quietly on our recording than he was before. They finally figured out how bad they were cooking his voice, and they fixed it in the middle of the rally, right? So that was the reason for the audio level change. It wasn't the HSP boys. So I'm going to boost up all the way up, Luke, because I'm coming in at like minus 26, something like that. We got to get a little bit more signal out of this, man. So my apologies, dear listener. Sorry for the interruption. Luke, should I go back, or were you able to hear what we just listened to just now?
No. Honestly, I don't know what it is, the internet or what, but I didn't hear any of that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. It could be because the audio was so quiet, man. Let's just back this up and roll it again. 2:15:02 coming at you once again. Let's see if we have better luck this time.
and began my higher education right here on this campus. I should also mention that my brother Larry graduated from Brooklyn College. I did not come from a family that taught me to build a corporate empire through housing discrimination. I protested housing discrimination, was arrested for protesting school segregation, and one of the proudest days of my life was attending the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Brothers and sisters, over the last 2 years and before that, you and I and millions of Americans have stood up and fought for justice in every part of our society. And we've had some successes. Together, as billionaires and large corporations have attacked unions, destroyed pensions, deregulated the banks, and slashed wages, we have succeeded in raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour in states and cities all across this country.
Yeah.
Dude, the billionaires and these people, they haven't done anything. The unions have destroyed themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This has nothing to do with billionaires. This is just, it's just pure hatred. He's just, this is so, it's like the left, they're like, oh, my divisiveness. Don't be divisive. Oh, my hatred. Don't hate, the fear mongering. It's like, what are you doing? This is exactly what you are doing, is this.
Right.
But like,
that's right.
I think the difference is that usually when the right does it, like, there's some semblance of truth there at the very least. Like there's something to argue there. This is just pure false, just pure dishonesty.
Yes, sir.
I mean, oh God, dude, I can't deal with him, man. It's so dishonest. Like I would love to be up on a debate stage with him and just absolutely obliterate all of this.
You'd slay him, man. I know. So yeah. Yeah, the thing that got me about this, dear listener, was like, I did not come from a family who taught me how to build a corporate empire through housing discrimination. I protested housing discrimination, right? Okay, housing discrimination. First of all, that is an ad hominem lie against Donald Trump, accusing him of housing discrimination through his real estate empire. That's false, right? Second of all, I don't like this equal opportunity lender thing. I don't like anti-housing discrimination bills, right? Because the fact of the matter is this: if you own a property, you should be able to rent it to whoever the hell you want to. And if you're a smart business person, it doesn't matter race, color, creed, nothing. You are going to rent your property to the person who is most likely to pay the bills on time. Otherwise, you're just a dumbass business person. You shouldn't be in business. If you're not going to try to get your properties into the hands of people who are going to pay you on time, right? So like that's always just kind of triggered me, man. And if housing discrimination ends up becoming a campaign plank of Bernie's, dude, this is going to be insufferable. All right. Well, thank you very much, Uncle Bernie. I think we're ready to roll on now. So Luke, I've got Joe Rogan queued up, man. I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be pretty funny stuff. It is, looks like there's a kind of a preamble section that goes on here for maybe about, 5 minutes of just getting comfy, and, getting into it and everything. What do you think, man? Where should we jump in this one?
I don't know, dude. It's a long interview. Maybe I would say probably minute 30 would be when they're really getting into it.
Okay. All right. About 30 minutes in. All right. So I am at 29 minutes and 53 seconds. Does that work?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, coming at you.
And I'll get into more sophisticated stuff in a moment. Gave them all the sophisticated AI, and now China announces they've got all these AI drones that are autonomous and all these AI weapon systems to direct their aircraft. So what I'm telling you is China has no rules. 20 years ago, they had cows that produced human milk. 20 years ago, they had spiders that produced body armor, spider guts. Okay. They have human animal hybrids 30 years ago. They've got giant human tissue farms. You know, you hear, oh, your Achilles is torn. We've got grown in a lab, a tendon. It's not a frickin' tendon grown in a lab. It's a frickin' deal, humanoid. These aren't humans. The way they get around it is they make
Wait a minute.
They make them a few.
We're saying so many things. Listen, I love you to death. But you say
I bet you
so
$10
many
million
different
humanoids
things.
are real.
I believe they are. But you say so many different things without stopping. It's hard
because
for
I'm
people
reporting
to
to the
absorb.
government agency so they'll listen and investigate. I'm decompartmentalizing.
Okay, but
this will be studied for years.
So what?
No, what I'm
I
telling you
believe
is,
you. I believe
Joe.
you. Yes.
Yeah.
Joe, it was in MIT.
What do you think, man?
I mean, Alex Jones this is like the hallmark. This is how you know he's a conspiracy theorist on these sorts of things, is because Joe Rogan can't get out like 2 words before Alex Jones is like, oh, no, blah, blah. And he's like throwing more stuff out, you know. And like, notice all the vague details.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, there's huge human tissue farms.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if that were real, you wouldn't just offhandedly throw that out. You know, that would be like,
yeah.
that would be like a real discussion. You'd be like, yeah, like in this province in Western China, they do human tissue. Oh, human tissue. Really? Oh, yeah. You know, it's just outside Chengdu and, you know, and it occupies a space.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That's the frame I'm stopped on right there, dude.
You know, he would be like, yeah, it's about 3, like he would be offering details, but he just throws out, and like, who knows if he's right or wrong? I think he's probably lying or fibbing or stretching the truth at the very least. But you know, you can't just like throw this stuff out there offhandedly. I don't know what you think, man.
Right. I totally agree, man. I'm a long time Alex Jones listener, man, since like he did the bust on Bohemian Grove on VHS tape back in the day, man. Like I've been watching Alex Jones for a long time. I like Alex Jones. I do, right? But like, man, he says the craziest shit I've ever heard in my entire life, man. And, you know, I appreciated him accompanying us in the meme wars in the 2016 campaign season. I appreciated him drinking champagne on his set when the election results were announced, you know, but like, man, it always just comes back to what you just said, man. And what Joe Rogan just said. Okay. Hold on. Okay. You're saying so much. I love you to death, Alex. I love you to death, but you're saying so much, right? And how do you verify any of this? There is no verification other than Alex Jones himself. Yeah,
exactly.
Right? I don't know, man. Yeah. I kind of tend to go with Luke on this one. I mean, do I trust Alex Jones? Yeah. I'm like Joe Rogan. Yeah, okay, I believe you, bro. I believe you, right? But you know, when it's this impossible to verify for myself, I have to just kind of laugh, man. And I'll tell you something, Luke, our buddy that sent us this last night, he was like, man, it's got aliens, it's got spider guts, this has got human tissue farms, it's got everything, man. He was right, dude.
I mean, the thing is, though, it's like I would welcome human tissue farms. It's like if my you know, Achilles tendon gets torn,
snapped,
give me your send me to the human tissue farm. I'll go harvest it myself.
Right, grow me a tendon, bro. Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right, dude. Let's do one more then.
All right. Yeah. I you know, this is fun, man. I am enjoying this. There's not really much to refute here. It's fun. It's good fun, man. I dig it. What do you think?
We should go like after. I'm pretty sure they smoked weed in this episode, and I'm pretty sure they're drinking
again. Wow.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Joe Rogan had to like get up and take a bathroom break in the middle of the show. I've never seen him have to do that before.
Dang, I've never seen that either. Huh?
Maybe go to the 3-hour mark. Let's just see what's going on there.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Man, I'm hovered at 206.39 right now, and Alex is just like that screen cap I just sent you, man. He's doing the same thing again.
With his arms up in the air.
Yes. He's certainly passionate, man. Who could not respect his passion, you know? So, all right, I'm at 2 hours, 59 minutes, 45 seconds. What do you think?
Yeah, it sounds good.
All right, here it comes.
The reason it's dangerous is that once you open that gate, it's all bad.
Why is it all bad? Why can't you experience that interdimensional being and learn something from it and be a better person when you come out of it?
Because for whatever reason, at first it's all beautiful, and soon you're an Aztec base, kidnapping all the local tribes and killing whoever's the tallest or the smartest. Every time it gets control, it starts murdering everybody. And it always starts beautiful. It always starts great.
So you're talking about ancient civilizations where they ritualize psychedelic drugs and they wind up killing everybody?
In every case, the priests say we have to throw babies into fires. We have to cut their hearts out. We have to bite their genitals.
True or false? Supposedly the mushrooms were used by the Aztecs so that they wouldn't resist. They'd get them all high on mushrooms.
It was beyond that. They had a cocktail. They had a cocktail.
They don't resist.
Of
Is this
dozens
true?
of hallucinogens and toxins that would give them an enema.
True or false, though? They didn't use the mushrooms just to keep them sedated.
I'm telling you,
it makes sense. It makes sense if you get. They killed. Pull this up. I think the temple. I forget how you say it. Teotihuacan. But in this one temple, I think they killed some insane amount of people after it was constructed. After the construction, tens of thousands. They sacrificed tens of thousands of people. That the ones that were actually working to build the temple. Once they died, they killed everybody.
I've been down there with like real university heads who I want to hear from them. These are the Mayans, and they said, "Yeah, no, we're opening an interdimensional gate. The gods want blood," and they didn't take it internally to the mouth. They would take enemas of dozens of hallucinogens and alcohol, and so the priest would take a couple of drugs. And then the priest wanted to communicate with the aliens, and the aliens wanted blood.
And they also
it was more like, we're chopping hearts out. Yes, sir. Okay, we did 1,000. Okay, the gate's open. Open.
Here it goes. Jamie says,
"Dang, man, I have no idea what's going on here, bro."
Yeah, I don't know. There's not much to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to listen to the show. It's hilarious.
I am too. Oh, yes. Yeah. Are you not entertained, dear listener? I certainly am. I am entertained.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'm going to watch the Trump rally at CPAC first. Then I'm probably going to watch this Alex Jones thing. Yeah, man.
He apparently got super heated at Eddie Bravo.
Oh,
and
really?
Was like screaming at him or something.
Dang.
Yeah, I don't know. Got up out of his chair and was like standing over him, like yelling at him or something. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I have to watch it.
Yeah. Oh man.
There's like a couple of people that I respect, not as intellectuals, but as entertainers.
Yeah.
And Alex Jones is one of those, dude. He is such a good entertainer. Like Milo.
Absolutely.
There's a lot to be left to be desired with Milo, but he is such a good entertainer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same here. And I mean, in his divorce hearings, right, they started going after him for being a conspiracy theorist and spreading political lies and being a Trump hitman and all this kind of stuff. And his defense was, dear listener, this is true, that he's just a show personality. That's it. Right? He's not a thinker. He's not a politically active figure. He's just an entertainer. That's it. Right? To try to get custody of his kids in this hearing. And I mean, so he is.
Yeah, totally.
So he is. And I don't mean to laugh at the brother, man. I really don't. I like him, man. I do. I do. But like, I just, we gave that drop 2 minutes of airtime, and in 2 minutes, I could not figure out what the F was going on, not even for a second, man.
I mean, the reason there was nothing there for us to comment on was because they weren't asserting any sort of evaluation of it. It was just them disputing historical facts. And I'm not a historian on Mayan human sacrifice. So don't really have anything to add, you know?
Yeah. Same here. Nor am I. But I don't know. Something about there was. I do know enough to know that at Tenochtitlan, which is the temple that they're trying to recall, and they forgot. Yes, tens of thousands of human beings were sacrificed at that temple. Watch the movie Apocalypto, dear listener. I mean, nobody knows exactly what it looked like in Mayan civilization, but I would say that Apocalypto by Mel Gibson paints a pretty fair picture of what it probably looked like. Just heads rolling down these temple steps like every 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Crazy stuff. Yeah.
I read about this like a few months ago about these human sacrifices and how like thousands of people would just be lined up.
Yeah.
Ready to be sacrificed. And then there was just people there just cutting their hearts out one after the other.
Yeah. Cutting their hearts out, cutting their heads off. Yeah. It's true. Yeah. Yeah. By the truckloads. I mean, everybody, like there for a long time, trucks, like, yeah. Like there for a long time, like in the early 2000s, there was this romanticism about Mayan culture and like how they were so smart in the Mayan calendar. They predicted that in 2012, the end of the earth is going to happen. And, we're going to transfer into some other dimension. And the Mayans knew this, and they were such noble people. Well, like, dear listener, no, they were absolute animals. And that's the truth.
Yeah. I mean, like, here's the real problem that they had there, in terms of them talking about the world's going to come to an end in 2012 and so forth. I mean, their real problem was that Ocasio-Cortez hadn't graduated college yet.
Right.
And they didn't realize that the end of the world really is in 2031.
That's right.
Which is 12 years from 2019.
Yes.
The Mayans were wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure they miscalculated somehow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was, or there was some dimensional transference, and the time-space continuum got slid a little bit into the future. Something like this, Yeah.
Yeah.
And the aliens, didn't have enough. I don't know, mushroom enema sacrifices. Things just got out of control.
I mean, this is the thing is that the aliens gave Ocasio-Cortez the base red pill enema.
Yeah.
And that's how she knows that the world is going to end in 2031.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, Lord have mercy. All right, man. I know that there wasn't really any content there, dear listener, but I'm calling this greatest grab bag special of all time.
Yeah, dude. I kind of want to do it. I kind of want to grab bag this again, like next week.
Yeah, I kind of do too.
Yeah,
I know. But I kind of do too, man. Yeah,
dude. Yeah. Maybe we should just start grab bag specialing, like just straight up Alex Jones content.
Yeah, I mean, we can't find it on YouTube. I mean, I think you have to be a pay cuck now on Infowars.
No,
to
dude, no, they still put it up on their website. Yeah.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Yeah.
I just think it's funny. Is like 2 weeks ago, he's like, Joe Rogan, I'm coming after you. And then like 2 weeks later, he's on the Joe Rogan show talking about alien mushroom enemas in the Mayan civilization.
Smoking weed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, one thing I will say, man, I mean, Alex, since his deplatformization, since he was completely deplatformed, rather remarkably, coincidentally, at the same time by everybody, man, he's looking a little rough for wear, man. I mean, he's still pretty yoked. His arms are still, like cannons, but man, he's put on a lot of weight. He's got a beard. He's looking pretty haggard. He's looking a little bit worse for wear, than he did just whatever that was, like 4 or 5 short months ago,
Yeah, I'm looking at this screen cap you sent me. It's like, look, if you're overweight, like I'm not like that in and of itself. I'm not going to, there's no character judgment there.
For sure.
But don't have like one of these beards where your double chin is the only shaved part.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah.
Like either have a full beard or just shave everything.
Yeah.
Because because like if you have a double chin and then you try to have this sort of like trimmed up beard, well, like the only thing that's visible is the double chin protruding from underneath the beard.
It's true. It's
you know,
true.
It's just, I don't know. I mean, just kind of like look down and look in the mirror or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. It's a regrettable decision to grow this beard. I mean, Alex, brother, I mean, respectfully. I mean that respectfully, lovingly, lovingly, brother. Like the beard is a regrettable decision. We understand what you're trying to do here at HSP. It's not working, man. I mean,
he's trying to pull off the Ted Cruz beard.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, right. Yeah, he is.
Which I think Ted Cruz pulls off very well.
Oh, he does, man. Yeah, he looks fantastic with a beard, man. And his power level increased when he grew it, man. It was just the perfect time. Yeah, perfect time. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that Alex Jones's power level needs to increase any more than it already is, but
it might need to decrease a little bit. He's taking too much of that super male vitality, man. Come on, Alex.
Yeah, he said too many mushroom enemas, man. That's the problem.
Oh man. But like, despite all of this, dear listener, I really do like and respect Alex Jones. Luke does too. We're just taking the piss out of him. That's all.
I respect him as an entertainer and as a radio show host.
Yeah.
I do not take his ideas seriously.
Some of them I do, some of them I don't. Most of them I don't. I mean, yeah.
I mean, most of what he says is so nonsensical. I mean, maybe Alex Jones like 10 years ago or 15 years or 20 years ago.
Right.
But like, he's had to just up the ante to the point now where it's just like, it's like he doesn't even talk about politics anymore. It's either, or philosophy or anything. It's either like he's, having an emotional breakdown.
Right.
Because Trump launched rockets into Syria.
Yeah.
He's literally crying while his awkward like staffer is sitting next to him who's like 25.
Yeah.
Or it's lizard people.
Yeah.
It's like the one or the other at this point.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man.
I mean, I don't know. There's no ideas to evaluate there, really.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know. And as much as he's more like, dude, no, I'm not going. We're not going.
I know exactly what you're thinking. I know exactly what you're thinking, brother. I know it.
Yeah.
I know it.
It's not that we're not going there. It's not that I'm afraid to go there. It's not that. It's just that like he is. It's like, how do I say this and not sound arrogant? He is so intellectually beneath us that I don't need to look to him for ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's not where I thought you were going. I thought you were going to make a comparison between him and someone else who used to be in our orbit kind of back in the day, whose name will not be spoken on this show. So I thought you were going to make a comparison with him. You know what I mean? So
No. I'm just saying that like, there's like nothing that Alex Jones says that really is like compares to anything that we say or are capable of thinking on our own. Like, I don't look to somebody like Alex Jones for ideas. This is why I don't take him seriously as an intellectual. But to be fair, there's very few people at this point that I look to for ideas because most people are depraved and lack good ideas at this point.
So true. So true, man.
He's in that sense the norm.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. So true. Yep.
All right, dude. I think that does it for 29. What do you say?
29 in the books, man. Goodbye 20s. Hello 30s. We're just going to keep putting them out, dear listener. Tune in next week. We're going to break a new decade, as JFK used to say. And thank you so much for riding along with us. We hope you had as much fun as we did. I honestly had a great time on this show, Luke. I hope you did as well, brother. I had a great time.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, I think this is one of our best shows so far.
Yeah, I do too, man. And like we said, we fought through it, dear listener. Slow news week, well, it wasn't a slow news week. It was just everything was consumed by the main topics that we discussed previously. And we were hoping for a short show. It's going to be shorter than last week, but it's not going to be exactly short. But that's okay. Thank you for sticking along with us nonetheless. We do truly appreciate it.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. 100% agree with everything Russ said. Dear listener, thank you for sticking with us till episode 30, in which we will burn it down. Hopefully we'll have a couple of guests on.
Damn straight.
All right,
brother. Great show. You have a good week, man. Let's stay in touch.
You too, brother. Peace.
All right. Later.